3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK. So a bunch of New Hampshire state senators walk into a bar. I don't know where that's going. Unarmed, no doubt, right? Because
unarmed, no doubt.
Well, some of them I would disagree with you.
Well, they wouldn't be walking in together.
No. Remember, because they'd have to be scared.
They are scared.
They're scared. Oh, no. Welcome to GrokTALK. After our week off, see what happens to us. We take a week off, we go get some training, we come back, we're all punchy. It's a little weird. Lots to talk about, but we're starting the show early this week because our next guest, or our first guest, I should say, wasn't going to be able to join us later, and we wanted to get him on the program to talk about Governor Maggie Hassan's budget. Greg Moore, welcome to the show.
And thank you guys for starting the show early. The Hillsborough County Republican Committee was gracious enough to ask me to come and speak with them today about several issues going on in Washington and in Concord, and I accepted, and then you guys called, and I said, ooh, double book, but I really appreciate you guys moving up the start of the show.
So you're the reason I had to get up even earlier on a Saturday, huh, Greg?
No, it's the budget. The budget is the reason.
This is important stuff, Skip.
It is. So let's talk about this important stuff.
Okay, well, I think that one of the things that happens quite a bit when it comes to budgets, just generally, and it's usually because the various groups that are trying to get more money, whether it be university system, Medicaid providers, or what have you, all make their case in the public before the budget is released. One of the things that the media tend to look at is who got money and who didn't get money. And that's fine because again, the squeaky wheel gets greased, and those are the people making the noise. But I think it's important to realize that a budget is a set of priorities where you are taking money from taxpayers to give it to various programs. And I think that part of the problem is that when people focus on the budget, they spend a lot more time worrying about where the money went as opposed to where it came from. And one of the things that we like to do is try to shift that focus right back to where the money's coming from. And that's partly because if you think about it, when people raise taxes, frequently everybody gets hit. But the people, when there are program increases in spending, those benefits don't usually accrue to everyone. They usually accrue to a small number of people. And that's why those small number of people who stand to gain a lot of money make a lot of noise about it. But the people who have to pay the bills, it's diffused and the actual hit tends to be a lot less. So, but that doesn't change the fact that this budget is one that, just to be totally blunt, is a budget that it grows unsustainably. I think the finance chairman in the House, Neil Kirk, said it best: unsustainable growth, and it relies on tax increases that are unlikely to pass the legislature. I liken it a little bit to something we saw in Washington with the federal budget. Now, President Obama, as everybody knows, put forth a $4 trillion budget, and for 10 years it goes out, it increases taxes by $2.1 trillion, adds $8.5 trillion in additional debt, and spends money like crazy. And no one thinks that can actually happen. But the purpose of that particular budget was one that the president achieved, which is to bring his liberal supporters and his liberal base back together again, because after a rough 2014, he needed something to bring his base back together. And he's been successful in that regard. And so in many ways, I view Governor Hassan's budget as fairly similar. Give a little bit of money to a lot of the key special interest groups to hold her base together, even though she knows full well that the outcome of this budget is unlikely to be implemented, and a lot of the programs are unlikely to actually happen. But it keeps her folks, her core supporters, happy and gives them something. But for those of us on the other side of the equation, the people who actually have to pay the bills, it's a lousy budget. Right after a 23% gas tax increase last year, we're now looking at 35% increase in motor vehicle fees. Obviously, that's a huge hit for a lot of people. And for those who remember what happened in 2009, just how incredibly unpopular those motor vehicle fee increases were, it was absolutely disastrous for Governor Lynch, and ultimately that actually ended up going away. So I think that That's a very unpopular thing that she did. That's going to hit drivers at a time when, look, the economy isn't great, but it's a little bit better than it was in 2009. But people still aren't looking to write an additional check to the DMV every year. That's one important one that hits everyone. The other important factors as far as increases in taxes, and we don't know all of them and we won't know them until the governor actually delivers the budget to the legislature, which sometimes might happen as late as early March. It should happen sooner, though. 21-cent per pack increase on cigarettes. Obviously, that makes us much less competitive as we look at the cross-border sales and the benefit that has to our local economy, people coming to New Hampshire to buy cigarettes. So it hurts all across towns like Nashua, Salem, and even along the Maine border, places like Rochester and Portsmouth. So that's definitely another factor. A new tax on e-cigarettes. That's a brand new tax that's being created. And it's funny because the governor said that one of the reasons why she wanted to increase taxes on cigarettes was to help people stop smoking, to help kids stop smoking. But e-cigarettes are actually one tool that a lot of smokers are using to stop smoking cigarettes. So yet she wants to tax those too. So that's an interesting sort of cognitive dissonance there.
How
with
do you
the governor.
these Democrats and their taxes? They like cigarette taxes. I've written about this a ton of times. I know the statistics. I know the numbers. I know that the tax increase did not reduce teen smoking. I know it did affect cross-border sales. But, they want this money, and I'm like, your point in taxing cigarettes is to make the tax go away. So you rely more and more and more on the revenue. What do you do when it's gone? I mean, what do you do when it's gone? You tax food, you tax beverages, people consume less. What do you do when that money goes away? I mean, it's like, why do you pick these unstable taxes? Income taxes are unstable, for Christ's sake.
Because they hate the Laffer curve.
Yeah, well,
they don't understand it. They hate it.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. You say, I want less of something, so I'm going to tax more of it, which does make strong economic sense. But then say, oh, I need the revenue to increase spending. So you're right. Again, that makes about as much sense as saying, well, I want to stop people from smoking, so I'm raising taxes. But then I'm going to start taxing a product that helps people stop smoking, and e-cigarettes.
That's true.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
That makes 21 cents.
Hey, Greg.
We need a laugh track here with this, Jim.
But Greg, what they see is, it delivers an addictive drug, nicotine. So we have to protect adults from themselves.
Of course, except for alcohol, which we ask people to sell more of, and we put the stores right on the highway. New stores.
And
exactly, and the state says, come visit our liquor stores. They're the place to be. No, but I think that the most pernicious tax, though, is one that's particularly damaging to our economy in the long run, and that is Governor Hassan, who some might remember back in 2009 when she was a Senate Majority Leader, was a strong proponent of the LLC tax. And I know you guys spent a lot of time focusing on the LLC tax back at the time because it's basically an income tax on small businesses. Well, let's just say that even though it was an incredibly unpopular flop and the legislature had to move to get rid of it almost immediately, Governor Hassan went right back to that LLC tax in her budget. So clearly she really wants to put an income tax on small business owners across New Hampshire. What she wants to do is undo some changes that were made in 2011 to protect small business owners from the DRA and tons of audits, which, by the way, adds the compliance cost that damages the economy almost as much as the tax. And so she wants to get a $44 million tax increase on small businesses, and that's her strategy in terms of how she's going to raise money in her budget. And then when you look beyond that, she also wants to tax businesses that basically go overseas in an effort to try to evade some of the incredibly onerous federal tax code.
Evade is such a pejorative term, don't you think?
Well, I think it's a logical business decision that these companies make. If they want to be competitive in a global marketplace and they're selling their goods across the globe, then they're going to try to find a way to reduce their tax burden.
Well, of course, but evade. I wouldn't say evade. I'd say they're smart guys.
No, I think that you're right to a degree because evade makes it sound like it's doing something illegal. It's absolutely perfectly legal,
Of course it is.
something that every single CPA that they have in their organization says to do right away in terms of tax planning. So, yeah, I don't want to give the connotation that's a negative, but I will tell you that that's something that Governor Haskins balances her budget on is those new tax increases on those companies as well.
Greg?
So we're taxing companies, and it's just obviously it's a huge negative consequence to our economy.
Greg, this is Skip. Over and over and over again through the blogosphere, whenever we see an attempt to cut taxes, we see the liberal response is, well, that's going to be taking revenue away from government. And that's the exact phrase that they use. And it basically tells me they believe government has first right to that money. So when Hassan says they're evading the taxes, she's really using a short phrase to basically say they're taking money away from us and we should have it first, period. And it's always under that rubric of progressives believe in their heart of hearts they know better how to spend our money than we do, right?
And you're absolutely right. I mean, I'll be honest. I've spoken on several bills regarding taxation this year, and the first question that a lot of the folks on the left will ask is, how do you plan to pay for this tax cut? And I give the same answer every single time. I say, you don't pay for tax cuts. I said you budget for tax reduction. You know, it's a very simple thing. You just reassess your priorities within government and make that decision. So that's obviously very not a popular answer among the people I give it to.
I bet you they don't even understand it, Greg.
No, because you're right. They view the government as having a property right to your tax revenue. And that's obviously a huge issue that separates them from basically the vast majority of the citizens of New Hampshire and the country. But when you look at all these tax and fee increases, that's how you get up to a budget that, at least based on the documents that the governor provided, says that the spending is going up by roughly $947 million, which would be a 9% increase in spending, budget to budget. And I got to tell you what, I don't know too many people out there whose income has gone up 9%. So if the people aren't seeing their income go up by 9% and their government spending 9%, that means that people are paying more of their money to pay for state government, and there's a real world impact on that, on families, on children, and it's unsustainable.
I loved your comment, Greg, about property right to our money. I thought that was a real top-notch line. Back to Susan.
I've got a question, Greg. I don't know who sponsored it, and I don't know the bill number, but because I've kind of been focused on other things the last couple of weeks. But is there not a bill that has either been introduced or about to be introduced that would levy a 1.5% BET on organizations that are classified as tax-exempt or non-profits? Let me ask you. Let me follow that up, though. When you look at the tax returns and the balance sheets and the income statements of some of these so-called nonprofits, the bulk of the money that gets laundered through these organizations goes primarily to payroll tax and benefits, to supporting salaries and benefits for their employees. There's not money being spent on R&D or machinery or equipment, things like that. It's on employees. So I'm wondering, everybody else, the BET is primarily a payroll tax, right?
Correct.
So these tax-exempt organizations, these so-called nonprofits, are basically hiring people and getting out of, they are evading, if you will, the state payroll tax. Is that a correct assessment?
Well, I would say this. I mean, historically, nonprofits have been exempt from state taxation. And but I will say this. I mean, I know this for the prime sponsor, Representative Hess from Hooksett, and his philosophy going in had more to do specifically with the hospitals, which in many cases he views as not truly nonprofit organizations, and wanting them to put something in, considering that they've been asking for reductions in their Medicaid enhancement tax expenditures. So, I mean, that's the genesis of it, and his philosophy was if you extend that tax to nonprofits, then you could reduce the overall tax burden for other businesses. At least he's not looking for it as a profit center. He's simply looking to basically broaden the base of a tax. And generally speaking, that's not always a bad thing in terms of broadening the base of a tax and reducing the rate. I think that's a fundamental precept of tax reform is to make sure everybody's paying in the lowest rate possible. So I think that's something that it's an ongoing discussion in Congress as to whether or not these nonprofits should be subject to BET, but because I mean at the federal level, nonprofits are subject to FICA, so their employees still have to pay the payroll tax on FICA. So I mean that's the argument he's using, and it's basically, like I said, it's a fundamental precept of tax reform is broadening the base and lowering the rate.
Well, David Hess is the same fellow who in 2000 gave political subdivision status to regional planning commissions without making them subject to either state budget or finance laws like any other political subdivision, a town, a school district, or whatever. So these guys, these regional planning commissions, needed the political subdivision status and the ability to incur debt because nobody would give them money otherwise. They were hand to mouth, year to year, trying to get money to impose their will on localities. So in 2000, he sponsored the bill and got it passed. But when you look at, for example, the Regional Planning Commission in which my town participates, the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, more than 85% of the money that goes through that organization supports employees and their benefits. And they are allowed to kind of do whatever it is they want. Granted, they're paying a federal FICA, but why would they be able to escape, evade Mrs. Hassan's tax net when, in fact, all they're doing is employing people?
Well, again, that's a fundamental policy issue that people have consistently held, which, in terms of state and local taxes, nonprofits have been able to avoid taxation, as well as at the federal level. Obviously, at the federal level, they avoid any of the corporate income taxes. So, I mean, again, it's a policy discussion that's ongoing. I know that Representative Hess has put this bill forward for several years now. It seems that it hasn't gotten a lot of traction yet. I'm not sure it's necessarily going to get a lot more traction this time than perhaps in the past. But it's certainly, like I said, it's an issue from a tax reform perspective that should be considered. There's no question that again, it's a benefit. But just focusing back on the budget, I think that one of the key things that you look at any budget, it's a list of priorities on the spending side. And on the spending side, one of the things that we've seen is this governor who's absolutely committed, for example, in bringing a rail system, which ultimately would be a long-term taxpayer boondoggle for the citizens. And I think that I think it was Drew Klein of the Union Leader said $4 million more for studying rail again. And instead of giving it to the people on the developmental disabilities wait list, they simply get their wait list renamed.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, she's just aping Thomas the Train, and she's saying, "I know I can. I know I can. I know I can."
They didn't get money to pay off the wait list, but they did get a new name. So I guess they got a new name.
We changed the name of high school dropouts too, and that just disappeared. I wonder if that's the plan.
Oh, it went from liberals to progressives to liberals back to progressives. Now they're pragmaticists.
Yeah, but look at John Lynch's magic. I mean, he changed high school dropouts to early exit non-graduates, which the federal government doesn't track, and all of a sudden our dropout rate went down to 1%. It's magic. They could do the same thing with the developmental disabilities list.
Maybe we need to rename the train, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what it is. We need to call it something else. We need to call it like a...
multi-wheel transportation conveyances.
Yes, there you go.
Well, I think that another one of the major concerns of the budget that we saw released on Thursday is something that we've been talking about over the course of the last couple of years, which has to do with Medicaid expansion. And obviously, Governor Hatton makes Obamacare Medicare expansion permanent. At this point, the program sunsets either at the end of this year or the end of next year, depending on whether the federal government gives the state several Medicaid waivers. But the thing obviously is and I wrote this in an op-ed earlier this week, and it really focuses on where we're setting our priorities as a state. Medicaid is already eating our state budget alive. I mean, our Medicaid program grew from just almost exponentially in the matter of the last few years. But according to the National Association of State Budget Officers, it grew from 24 to 27% just between 2012 and 2014. It's obviously coming along of our total state budget, and it's coming along and taking away opportunities for, say, education or public safety, or even getting access to the court system. I was talking to an attorney this week who said if you want a jury trial in a civil case, you're waiting 3 years. Wow. 3 years. And so we are basically limiting people's access to justice to continue to pay for programs like Medicaid. Now, what's significant about Medicaid expansion under Obamacare is that in the fiscal committee, a little over 2.5 weeks ago now, the fiscal committee actually voted because of these cost overruns, because of Obamacare, and in part because of Obamacare Medicaid expansion cost overruns. They actually had to go and transfer monies from within the department, cutting other programs to pay for these services. So while Medicaid is actually eating the state budget alive, Medicaid expansion, this new population, is taking away from other services for the truly needy. And I point that out because according to the Urban Institute, 82.4% of people who are going to be signing up for Medicaid expansion are able-bodied childless adults. Now, if we're cutting services to the disabled, to seniors, for children, to provide a welfare benefit for able-bodied childless adults, basically you have to ask yourself, what are your priorities? These are people who, in theory, we should be in the workforce, and people who we need to get into the workforce. These are people who are on the sideline. We need to get them out of, frankly, in many cases, their parents' basement, get them into the workforce, and get them moving. The last thing they need is a disincentive to go and seek gainful employment by getting a welfare benefit for not working. And I think that fundamentally that's a huge problem. It's an ongoing problem, and it's even becoming worse as we're starting to see the impact it's having on other services for people who I think a lot of us would say are truly needy. It's people who are severely mentally ill, people who are developmentally disabled. There is a role to try to provide services for those folks, but to take money from them, to give that money to able-bodied childless adults, is fundamentally it's a huge public policy problem, and we're seeing it happen right now in Concord.
Hey, Greg, I was once told them votes don't buy themselves. Is that right?
Well, I mean, let me put it to you this way: the folks who fundamentally were on now as subject to Medicaid expansion, a lot of those folks actually, some of them, a good chunk of them were signed up on the exchange, got heavily subsidized Obamacare policies through the exchange. Now, just as a mental model, consider this for a second. They go to the exchange, let's say they're between 100 and 138% of FPL. And by the way, in order to get to 100% FPL, you need to work about 28 hours a week at minimum wage. And so it's not even a full-time job at minimum wage to get to 100% of the federal government.
You got 2 minutes to squeeze this in, so keep going.
Okay, so these folks went onto the exchange. They got a $9,600 policy for which they were paying about $200 or $250 a year with the Obamacare subsidies, and now they're being shifted to a Medicaid program that's much lower quality. That's about a $5,500. So they lost about $4,000 in benefits by being shifted from the Obamacare exchange onto Medicaid. And again, these are the types of issues that we're going to explore with the legislature as we work to try to basically get them to reverse the policy to make Medicaid expansion permanent.
Greg, we're coming to the end of this segment, and I want to thank you for taking some time to talk to us about the budget. How do people reach you guys at AFP New Hampshire?
Best way is to come to our website. It's long. It's www.americansforprosperity.org. and then you can come and click the New Hampshire slider, and you can see what's going on here in New Hampshire. Or you can look nationally at what's going on in terms of our activism on things like the Keystone Pipeline.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much. Good luck at the Hillsborough Republican Committee today.
All right, thank you. Thank you, guys. I
And
appreciate the time.
stay warm.
Will do.
All right, take it easy. All right, thanks to Greg. So those of you who are listening, if you want to be on the program, and we're not against the idea of getting up and hauling our butts in here a couple minutes early. I mean, we usually start the pre-show at 8:30 anyway, so it's not like we can't come on the air and do guests, but we don't want to commit to that because then that means we're coming in even earlier every day to get ready for the show, and it's a pain in the butt. So
I doth protest what he said.
What?
I don't particularly like to get up even earlier.
You are here, and we are ready to go live at 8:30 almost every single week. What's the difference?
Because I had to be ready earlier.
Pressure. It was mental pressure. It was entirely in your head.
Well, the point was brought up about why are we giving money for the people who are workable and taking it away from those that are on that list for the mentally disabled. They just all seem to prescribe to that Ezekiel Emanuel's thought of worth to society.
Sure.
Model, which is, if you
them
hit
votes
70,
don't buy themselves.
Yeah, well, or as he said, you shouldn't be getting much medical assistance at all when you hit 75. I expect to die at 75. I will reject it. Well, that's fine for you, but stop making decisions for me, and stop making decisions, adverse decisions.
I was wondering where that was coming from.
For those people who really desperately need the help.
Pressure.
Cool.
Love that song. One of the best.
Nicely done. With the iPad and the microphone. That sounded good.
It did.
I was going, where's it? I
cue,
thought
you
that
know
was
what?
you.
This is you can cue up like sound bites while we're talking, and we're playing through your microphone. That's awesome. Saved me the trouble of having to try to juggle all these displays and screens and windows and all these other things that are going on here. All right, so coming up, we don't have Guy this week. He couldn't make it, so we'll just fill the first 15 minutes with whatever we want, and then we'll have Ron Moore on, our storm chaser, to talk about snowstorms, blizzards, and climate.
Oh, my.
Oh, my. Yep, that's all coming up. We have a week of storms on its way, starting tomorrow. And
So what else is new?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Lots of snow. The roof's getting, snow's getting really high up there. So
Need a bigger snowblower.
I can't get my snowblower on my roof.
I can.
Yeah, you can. You can?
I can.
Wow.
You can?
I don't even know. Maybe we'll have to talk about that in the next segment. All right.
I have to put it next to the house, but
We'll be right
it's getting it up there in the first place.
back. This is GrokTALK.
But I can.
Stay tuned.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor. Because Obamacare limits your choices, some will have to drive more than an hour to see a doctor. What's health insurance worth if care isn't there when you need it? Jean Shaheen voted for Obamacare, putting your doctors and hospitals further out of reach. Tell Senator Shaheen Obamacare is not working for New Hampshire.
Jean Shaheen and her allies are making false claims about her record on veterans. The truth? Shaheen refused to meet with veterans pushing for reform. She wasn't on the committee that wrote the reform legislation and refused to co-sponsor important VA reforms in the VA Management Accountability Act until after the VA scandal broke. When our veterans needed her, Jean Shaheen was AWOL. Tell Jean Shaheen to stop distorting the truth and fix the VA.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. If you have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
Wait, if you missed it,
Do it again.
that is the Wring-Neck Hosmer Goose.
That is a ring. That's with a W-R-I-N-G.
So,
yes, and it will be well wrung, and he will be cooked.
Yeah.
He is not happy.
Senator Half-Baked.
Senator Half-Baked Hosmer.
Andrew Half-Baked Hosmer. You know, it just rolls off the tongue.
It does, doesn't it?
It was
He
so
probably
sing-songy.
he probably thought he was just denigrating some little woman or other.
Well, interestingly enough, the story...
How could he possibly have known that he was dissing one of the premier gun rights activists in the state?
Well, I wrote the same email to him that I sent to the other 23 senators, even those that I knew that were in support of the bill. And the point that I was trying to make, not as a necessarily a gun rights activist, but basically on a women's rights side of it. And he had obviously, not that do you know who I am sort of thing, but, you know, I put under my name my town, which not in his district. And I don't know, maybe he just thought it was cute. He writes back, Susan, like he knows me. Thanks for writing. Thanks for contacting me, but your points are at best half-baked. Regards, Andrew. Okay.
Lighting the fuse.
Well, I got responses from some senators that were, you're not in my district, so thank you anyway. And some went, are you kidding, Susan? You know how I stand on this bill, right? And then I got some absolutely no responses, I guess from about half of them, quite frankly.
I bet even some of the Republicans.
Oh, yeah. But, the good news is most of the Republicans I knew were in support, so I wasn't really bothered by that. But
they all voted for it.
Yeah, well, I had not been insulted by a New Hampshire senator in writing. Plenty of times in person, but not in writing. And I thought, maybe it's not do you know who I am, but do you just really think women are stupid? And when Steve came up with the half-baked bit, half-baked Hosmer, I thought, well, maybe there's something going on here. And I wrote a little piece about it and put it on Facebook and also posted it up on Granite Grok. And we're raising money. Thank you, Senator Hosmer, off of your insult, to send me to classes that will teach me how to be more articulate in presenting my arguments and baking them fully to where they are well done. And you, sir, will probably get served the first load. So, thank you for that. We will try to use your insults to their best. But worse than the insults, okay? I was told by someone who saw him that same night, okay, after the vote on Thursday, that he said to this person, "Yeah, one of your folks, one of the people that work for you, is that one of your folks?" And the person said, "No, that person doesn't work for me. That's a friend of mine." And the person says, "Do you have any idea that she's sort of is one of a group of gun rights activists.
Do you know what you have just done?
And he said, well, she wouldn't shake my hand. Well, I saw him after the vote on Thursday, and he was walking out of his office, and I walked up to him, and I said, Senator, I said, my name is Susan Olson. And he shook out his hand, and I said, I'm not going to shake your hand. I said, you owe me an apology. And he looked at me like I was, I don't know, the gardener or the pool guy. Like, how dare you speak to me?
And we know how pool guys get treated in this state.
And he walked away.
Nice line.
Well, what I had done earlier that morning on my way into the State House was I dropped by his little office and dropped off a pint of Ben & Jerry's half-baked ice cream, and I take my business card to it. And
the half-baked one, huh?
The half-baked. And I go into his office. Of course, he's not there because it's very early, and I'm sure that you know, the maid hadn't gotten him up yet and off to work. So I said, may I leave this for the senator? And the staffer said, you're killing me here, Susan. The staffer knew me. And I said, well, can I put it in the fridge? And the staffer said, well, sure. Would you believe that his refrigerator, even his refrigerator, opens from the left? I said, are you kidding me? Did you do this deliberately? He goes, Susan, you're killing me. Get out of here. So in the fun article that Kitchy Kitch wrote,
this would be Michael Kitch of the Laconia Daily Sun, who is not exactly a fan of Granite Grok, but seemingly keeps reading it. Thank you, Mike.
And he took the time to mention almost all of us by name.
Susan, Kimberly Morin, Steve, myself, and he included the half-baked.
And he probably would have mentioned Mike, but Mike's been away and he hasn't been able to write.
Mike's been minding customers and babies, that frontline support people, continuously the last few weeks.
By the way, slide over 6 inches that way.
Well, I didn't leave the ice cream on his desk.
You put it in his fridge.
I put it in his left-handed,
Right.
opens from the left fridge.
Was it plain vanilla?
No, it was half-baked. Whatever's in half-baked, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what we can look it up.
We can look it up.
I'll do that.
And so someone, either...
Probably nuts.
Either the staffer did as the staffer said they would and would make sure that the senator got it, or maybe somebody thought it was kind of funny and left it on his desk and ran out of the room. I don't know. But either way, Senator Halfbaked probably still has my business card, I hope, and my phone number, and I'm waiting for it to ring. Okay?
That's a bit like Glenn Beck waiting for the Obama phone to ring?
Yes. Yes, that big red one.
Here's the...
I could get a Hosmer phone.
We could. Wait. Does it, Nick, you can use this as your ringtone. Let me go get it.
Play it up. Put up really loud.
And you'd know it was him.
I wouldn't know it was him.
You would know.
So, Senator, here I am. You've got my phone number. I'm willing to listen to you, but let me know.
So half-baked, Trust, is here's the marketing blurb.
Here's the marketing blurb.
Maybe I need music for this. Let me go look, because this is...
while you're searching for that, I will say that I did write him an email.
Did you?
Sent it to him.
Yes.
And unlike you, I am a constituent. I live in that district. I have not heard back yet either.
Well, I'm sure he's a busy guy. He's trying to...
Imagine gooey fudge brownies and crumbly frozen chocolate chip cookie dough nestled in a creamy chocolate ice cream with a touch of vanilla. And you have Ben & Jerry's half-baked.
I get the doughy bit.
Yeah.
Okay. The doughy bit. All right. Have you seen the guy? Okay. So, Senator, call me.
So is he the Laconia Doughboy?
The Laconia Doughboy! I like it. But you know what's really fun?
But he's only half-baked.
He's only half-baked. But he's decided that, because Bike Week, Laconia...
Well, that's true. If he was fully cooked, he'd be fruitcake.
That's right. He's trying to get the state to issue a commemorative license plate for Bike Week.
Smoke and mirrors.
Well...
Left hand, right hand.
Well, interestingly enough, the people who ride motorcycles, like me and my friends, who go to Bike Week, tend occasionally to carry firearms. All right? But Mr. Hosmer doesn't see. I wonder if he thinks bikers are suitable, or if he treats bikers like he treats little old ladies. So, Senator, I want you to picture this: a little old lady on a great big Road King, okay, decked out in leather, armed. I want you to think about that, and then call me.
You could put that on the commemorative plate.
You might be playing into his worst fantasies.
I could be, but he's willing to waste taxpayer dollars on a hearing to have motorcycle plates to make himself look good. Maybe his picture's going to be him. I don't know. I do not know.
We could make some calls. We know people. We could get a graphic of the well, maybe it's a loon and not a duck, but the ring-neck Hosmer goose.
We could cook that goose.
We could, yeah. So
he's well beyond half baked already.
Yeah, loons and lead, huh? Go figure. So call me, Senator. You know where to find me.
That's right. You've got her card.
Yeah, you have my card.
Assuming you saved it.
Well, I don't know. He might have opened that ice cream pretty quickly.
Well, he has his figure to think about, right? Because he's got to keep that doughboy.
Well, it's that prosperous thing. You know, it's that prosperous thing. Being a former prosecutor and all. Did you know that? He was prosecutor in Massachusetts.
Why is he former? Did he come to New Hampshire to spread his Massachusetts values?
No, now he sells used cars.
Well, that fits.
That's
a
right.
lateral move.
Yeah, that's right up there with being a prosecutor in Massachusetts.
That is.
Yes, AutoServe.
Yes.
New Hampshire.
Well, I
among
think
others.
there are many dealerships.
There
actually.
are, but he's the general manager down the street from my hometown.
Oh.
Do you think that this publicity might cause AutoServe to have second thoughts? Or maybe
No, he's married into the family.
Or maybe second-hand thoughts?
Well, you know what I wanted to think about, though, is when all of us disgruntled little old ladies, okay, go stand in front of his dealership and talk about the fact that he obviously doesn't think women should be able to defend themselves. Now, may not bother him, but, you know, if this is his wife's business, she may not be happy about losing business.
You should all dress up like Aunt B or Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Ooh, Aunt B! I like that, Aunt B.
Well, we have other stories that have not been brought to the fore about Mr. Hosmer. Maybe we should start using them.
I think it's time to shake that tree and see what falls out. We're
Let's
going to take a...
Let's do a background.
Call me, Senator.
We have had a bunch of people whispering in our ear over the years. See, this is why you treat people nicely, because you don't know what they have.
It isn't even nicely. It's respectfully. I'm older than he is. Respect your elders, Senator.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to call Ron Moore, and we're going to talk about a different kind of climate and some upcoming storms and a little weather. And you guys stick around. We'll be right back.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Rock Talk.
Welcome back to GrokTALK. Thanks again to Greg Moore for coming on to talk about the Hass and budget, or the groundbreaking beginning of whatever will become Hass and budget. Sorry, I'm turning
Get that right button.
Everybody else's microphone's on, and I'm turning mine off. So we're going to change gears, different kind of climate. We were talking about gun rights and so on and so forth, but this is a new segment that we wanted to start about climate and weather, and it's a great time to have it because we're on this pattern where we're getting storm after storm after storm, and we have a storm chaser with us who doesn't have to chase these storms because they're coming right to his front door. Ron Moore, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you guys.
Good, great. So let's talk about the weather. What the heck?
Well, this is called global warming, and that's what it does. It causes it to snow and get cold. You know, it's amazing, and I know you guys know all these quotes because you have some great guys come on the show like Dr. D and all the other JD and all them. But it wasn't many years ago when they were saying the snow would cease to exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like in 2000, they had all these quotes coming out from the University of East Anglia saying it'd be a rare event. Children would be sledding anymore. We moved up here about 11 years ago to New England, and I bet so many people who told me a few years back we wouldn't see snow anymore. And I asked them what's going on now. Many of them are very environmentally conscious. I'll use that term.
That's not snow.
Yeah, and they exactly. They say, well, we told you this would happen. I mean, this is personal relationships I had. 5 years ago, they said, we're never going to see it. They say, well, we kind of knew this would happen. I said, you can't change your forecast in the middle, you know. So, yeah, it's definitely. And as far as the chase things go, I may be here in town tonight. I may actually be in Portland or Plymouth. I may be in Plymouth, Mass, or in Portland, Maine, later this evening. So we may actually go after this guy.
So so let's talk about the pattern. I mean, people don't. I mean, you get the weather, you know, but they don't really talk a lot about what makes this chain of events occur.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, isn't part of it the Earth's orbit?
Yeah. You know, it's funny, though. There really are a lot of different things. Like, recently there was this thing about increased moisture. I don't know if you guys heard about that. It made the last storm so bad. We were talking about the moisture came in off the Cape. And the real reality is the only warm water that's really having an effect on the pattern would be in the North Pacific. And, again, that's not my specialty per se, but that's pretty much common sense. That has an effect on it. But those things do that all the time. Your currents move back and forth. The Gulf Stream is permanent. It's been there forever. I mean, you know, the shipping routes, the whaling route, they knew about it. And this last storm in particular dropped 3 feet. And I believe you find that actually on Weather Belly, we're actually talking about this, that it dropped less than an inch of moisture in Boston. That's like the driest snow you can get. So it was not an increased moisture that made that storm stronger. It was the dynamics of the cold air coming in, which is going to make this one tonight and tomorrow really, really bad and dangerous, the cold air coming into it.
Now, this is high winds. It's a real blizzard. It's a lot like a hurricane, right?
It is. And that's the only reason. I mean, I went to bed at 1, got up at 5, you know, checking these models out and looking over everything and just trying to get a good assessment. It's very hard to narrow down these bands. The guys who do this for a living are really doing a great job, really, in this instance, from the Weather Service all the way up to the private guys, because to pick out where the band's going to hit and who's going to be under it is really going to be tough. But 6 to 12, isolated 18 inches with winds, everybody, even here in the Merrimack Valley, the winds will be gusting probably to 40 and 50 by 9 a.m. tomorrow, and everybody knows that. That's what the Weather Service is putting out. That's bad. When you got this powder on top of that, probably 6 degrees. You know, I used to live in Northwest Texas, Amarillo. This is a Great Plains blizzard, is what it is.
Wonderful, just what we need.
And that's how snow comes to Texas, right? Straight down the middle.
What's that?
That's how snow comes to Texas, straight down the middle.
That's right. Out of Canada, man, right down through the tail, the cow gates in the North Country. There, they come straight through. But this is something that people are not used to. Again, you know, this type of dry snow on top of the mounds of snow that already exist. And I'll say this too, when it comes to the climate change battle and what's going on, we chase storms. We've chased many hurricanes. I've chased tornadoes, like I said the last time, since the early 80s growing up in West Texas. The last 3 years have been bad. Very few tornadoes, very few hurricanes. When the climate change became the term rather than global warming, first thing they said were ramped up more intense storms. And we're not seeing that. You know, we're seeing a more glamorization of storms. When one hits, you know, obviously everybody in the world is there to see it make landfall like the Marines or something. But there's not more of them and they're not worse. If they were, I'd be out there doing it right now. So, you know.
Whereabouts in West Texas?
All over, actually. Amarillo is a younger kid, and I graduated high school in Midland, the Bush Country. Yeah.
I'm a Dallas girl.
Are you? Yes.
And it's not Richardson, it's not Mesquite, it's not Garland, it's not Carrollton, it's Dallas, just so you know.
I know. Yeah, okay. Exactly. I lived there a while, too. I actually went to seminary there.
Did you really?
Yeah, some people call it cemetery, but yeah. I love Dallas. Great city.
Well, and I went to school in Stillwater, sort of.
Yep.
Grew up around some tornadoes, you know.
Yes, you did.
We chased them, but we were mostly drunk on beer when we were doing it. And pizza.
So they look really cool, didn't they?
They looked really cool, man. Summer school was so much fun. You just wait for the weather to turn and say, somebody's got a truck, somebody gets a beer, somebody gets a pizza, and we go after them.
It's funny, when I grew up in Midland, we actually, I took my high school friends out sometimes. And, we would pack out the ice chest and everything in the back and eat sandwiches and watch these things just blow up, what they call the dry line. Back then, no one knew what that was. Now today, that's kind of out there, too. But it was, it was fun days.
Those were great days.
Yeah, they really were. I'm talking about this whole climate battle that's been going on with, I think I mentioned to one of you guys on Facebook that we just issued an ebook.
Oh, you did? Yes, you did.
Yes. It's called Storm Warriors. So they can go to Amazon, look up Storm Warriors, Saving a King, and it's for kids. It's written for kids, and what it does, we compare storms today, real chases we've been on, all the names are made up to protect the survivors. That's the way we put it. Anyhow, and they go back in time and chase the storms of the past, real stories, and then they chase similar storms today in similar cities, and they do a comparison. And it's really done in a fun way. We think it's our first one, and we've already got one coming out for the 1821 hurricane. We're going to compare it to Superstorm Sandy. So this first one's already out there, and it's the 36 Tupelo tornado, Elvis Presley. Most people don't know he survived a twister as a 1-year-old.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Well, it gets a little bad weather every now and then.
They do, and that's what this story's about. And like I said, if your viewers want to go out there and check that out, they can do whatever.
We encourage that. We'll link to it when we put it up, so that they can have a look at that. That's a good deal. And so anyway, I think probably some of our listeners who are maybe more educated about climate and weather than the average person, but they'd still want to know, looking forward through February into March, and I haven't had a chance to go over to listen to Joe Bastardi to get updated on where we're headed in the next couple of weeks, but we have you on the program, so we'll ask you, what does it look like for the next 6-8 weeks of winter, or the rest of the season?
Is the groundhog not going to see his shadow because he'll be buried?
Yeah, I hear the Merrimack Police Department here in New Hampshire, they put out a warrant. Did you hear about that? They put out a warrant.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I know. So they're fighting out the truth. No, they're all calling for it. And these long-term guys, like you said, Bastardi and the others are really, they do a decent job at that stuff. 6 to 8 weeks of tough time coming up. In the early April. In fact, most long-term guys that I keep up with and follow, because that tends to be more their specialty, they're all like February for sure. We got a half month left there, into March easily, and maybe into early April, which is good. We really, I know people don't want more snow, but you do not want a rapid thaw here. You certainly don't want rainstorms to come in with 50 and 60 degree weather, because that'd be bad, real bad. So we're looking at least hopefully a slow ease out of this thing, but you got at least 6 weeks to go. Yeah. In fact, just looking at the models this morning, about 15 minutes before you guys got hold of me. In fact, I was just here with my son Josh. I said, "Boy, we've got 5 more storms on the charts in the next 12 days." 5 of them, and they're all 1 foot plus.
Wow.
Now that's models. That's not obviously. Models are just a tool. But if what they're showing is any indication, we're looking at over 100 inches this season easy, because we're now here in Merrimack approaching the 80-inch mark.
Let me ask you a question,
Yeah.
and maybe I've just recently noticed it or what. Since when do snowstorms get a name, and who's in charge of that every year? How do they pick those names? Like, I don't know, Hester or something. Who's in charge of snowstorm names?
I would venture
Is that
to say
Al Roker?
You know what? It could be Al. It could be him and Stephanie Abrams that got together and coined that up. I have a feeling Jim Cantori got behind that too. No, just kidding. Yeah, it's interesting you say that though, because that has stirred up a lot of, we'll call it excitement in the weather community. Some people kind of took it laughingly, and others got really upset about it. And it's an interesting idea. And believe it or not, you might not know this, there are a few other people out there trying to do the same thing. I thought that's really going to be interesting when everybody's got 4 different names for the same storm and no one knows which way it's coming or going,
I call them all Senator Shaheen.
Yeah.
Blowhard.
Destructive. Hey,
that should be Hosmer.
Well, also because she's one of those ones who, back in 2008, when she was running for Senate, was talking about how we wouldn't have any snow, and the ski season and tourism in New Hampshire would be ruined, and the foliage would be ruined. We wouldn't have leaf peepers, and the maple syrup season would be ruined.
Yeah, and it turned out the ski season's being ruined not by the weather, but by the Obamacare that she was the 60th vote for, because the ski areas can't afford the health care for, season-round operations.
Or the power to run those lifts.
Isn't it amazing? I tell people, I say, folks who've been pushing this myth, this lie, whatever you want to call it, betrayal, the American public, the global warming, man-made global warming, the climate change, all their junk. I said, some of these people really, I guess you got to be easy with this, but some of these people should be brought into court. They really should be. You can't just sling terms like that around, deface science, ruin the public, and hurt the people of the country, and be able to just walk away from it. You know what I mean?
Follow the money.
So what do you charge them with being? Democrats?
Well, good Lord, we charge people with all sorts of things today. It's like, I know we have an electoral process where people can be voted in and out, but it's sad. It's like you said, it's affecting a lot of companies and people. Somebody said the other day, Boston couldn't have prepared for this because they had no clue it was coming. Well, if you'd have gone, honestly, I'm not promoting them, but Weatherbell and other companies out there were some private groups doing a great job saying this was coming. They said this was coming this year. If you'd have followed them instead of your other sources, yes, you could have been ready for it.
Hell, even the Farmer's Almanac's more accurate than the climate change folks.
Absolutely, because all you do is climate change. You just keep going 20 years out. Every time you get to your benchmark, and none of your forecasts came true. Again, I keep it real simple when I'm talking to people. I said, you said there'd be no snow and more hurricanes and tornadoes. We have tons of snow and no hurricanes and tornadoes. So your forecast is coming. They said, well, no, you can't.
But it's all caused by the same thing, so you can't criticize them. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And then there was another notion I heard, and this one I don't have the source for it, but that they had not included humidity or moisture in their models. That's one thing they had left out. That's why they
wait a minute. Isn't it true that Roy Spencer and S. Fred Singer have been saying for years that it's the humidity cycle, the water vapor cycle, that is in fact the regulating factor, the negative feedback in the loop?
Absolutely. And not only that, that's one of the three core tenets of meteorology. If you don't put that in your formula, I don't know who was making all this stuff. Well, we do. They were making it up.
Yeah, well, all the stuff that comes out of the sky is moisture one way or the other, whether it's fog, rain, or snow.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it was a no-brainer. A sixth grader could have got it.
Yeah,
I'm with you. The things, again, being into science and things, that aspect bugs me to death because you're not only lying to people, you've also got mis-science going. This science is not true. You're not giving that, and the kids are being taught this stuff. And after that, it gets dangerous because this storm will be a very dangerous storm. This week. And by the way, I know you guys are already aware, Tuesday and Wednesday, they've probably got another foot coming. We won't have more than 36 hours between the beginning and end.
Yeah, I heard that was coming, and we're coming to the end of our segment.
Yeah,
so.
I got to dig out my log pile twice just to make sure I got my emergency heat ready to roll.
There you go. Hey, can I give you one more floor to the Facebook, the storm warning on Facebook?
Real quick, you got about 10 seconds. Hurry up.
Everything there will update you. The storm warning on Facebook, and again, it's all
storm warning.
Meet the public.
All right, and the book is Storm Chasers.
Storm Warriors, Saving a King.
All right, well, Ron, thanks so much for being on the program. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you.
It's the only weather you got, right?
That's right. You got it, man. You nailed it. That's a good phrase. I like that.
Yeah, Joe Bastardi won't mind if I steal it. All right, we'll see you. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, Ron Moore, we'll be right back with Ed Naile to talk about interstate vote fraud. Stay tuned.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, thanks to Greg Moore for coming in at 8:30 to talk to us about the budget. Ron Moore for coming to talk to us on the phone about weather. And we're going to be moving on with Ed Naile in a second to talk about some interstate climate activity of the vote fraud variety. And it's always good to get an update because so many things go on that we can't squeeze into 2 hours every week, which is why we went to 2.5 hours this week. But this is GrokTALK, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, who is responsible for allowing us to use this space to have this broadcast every week, except for last week. So let's move on with the chairman of the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, who got some press this week.
Yeah, I was misquoted.
And misquoted, and they got the name of your organization wrong.
Yeah, you know when you have a teenager leaning over you with a notepad, there's going to be trouble.
You're the Correlation of New Hampshire what?
Yeah, constipation or something like that. I'm not sure.
Constipation of New Hampshire Taxpayers. That actually works.
Yeah, I didn't. We're trying to constipate some other people. But,
that's right. You got some vote fraud news for us.
Yeah, let's do somebody from Pennsylvania that votes here. Her name is Jenna Rakovan. And Jenna Rakovan, JennaRakovan. She's the only Jenna Rakovan in America. That's a tough thing to do when you're trying to vote in 2 states. So here's her background. You don't do well with photocopies on a radio program, but what we have is a young lady who appears to have voted in Dover. And here's my list of the first 50 of the people sent to me by Dave Scott in Dover, who mailed everybody.
Right, from
who
the
voted
last
November
time you
4th.
were on, he had a list.
Yeah. Very first guy was Robert Baker. And Robert Baker is Robert D. Baker of Lower East 19. That's his address. And the post office sent it back saying it is unable to forward. There's different categories for people in Dover who vote there but apparently don't live there. Unable to forward, no such number, no such street, attempted, not known, moved, left no address, and insufficient address. So one of those 6 things is why your letter is returned once it's been mailed to somebody on the checklist. So we have like 1,500 of these to go through. Caught the very first guy. I have a bunch of these highlighted. Jenna Rakovan's about maybe 15 or so down, 15 or 18 down. Jenna Rakovan works for Rutgers University on Mystic Island in New Jersey near Egg Harbor. And I believe she lives in a dorm there that the facility has at Rutgers University.
College student.
No. She's 29 years old. So,
in a dorm.
It's a dormitory. Let's not squirrel it too much yet. Let's calm down. She lives in a dorm that's supplied for this marine biology base that Rutgers has on the New Jersey coast. Okay? But she is a registered active voter in the town of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. So I have her records from there. These are screenshots from the Pennsylvania database. Jenna Rakovan, 3/29/1985, age 29, female. Her parents live at 70 Bayberry Lane, Phoenixville, PA, and she has been voting there since she first started voting in 2000. I don't know, it was 2008 anyway. We have a vote. 2008 she voted by absentee, according to the Pennsylvania's database. You see the little envelope there.
So she did the right thing.
In 2008, but I don't know whether she voted here in 2008. In 2008, she was a UNH college student.
So she did the right thing.
I don't know whether she voted here in 2008 as well.
Oh, as well. There's the link.
So
linchpin.
New Hampshire has sloppy records. I can't just go get records from New Hampshire. So in Pennsylvania, I can. So what I do is I mail off.
And even if you get records, if they're
You can't
bad,
trust them.
they're probably wrong because that's what the AG will say.
Yeah, I caught a guy named Jared Stephen Cram, and within days of announcing his name on Girard at Large, the Secretary of State's office was conducting their own investigation as to whether or not he voted here in 2008, and they found out he didn't.
They're tracking.
So the records of Jared Stephen Cram for 2008 show that he didn't vote in 2008. I have his complete record from Pennsylvania going back to 1998, and New Hampshire says, "Oh, it must have been one big mistake. He didn't vote here." Well, he didn't vote there either. So here's a political activist that works for campaigns, is the treasurer for somebody running for city council in Philadelphia, is part of the Philadelphia Democrat machine, and didn't vote in 2008. He was training poll watchers in 2008. I know that from the internet. But New Hampshire says, oh, our internal investigation, which I haven't seen, says he didn't vote here.
There's a great big eraser.
Now, that couldn't happen. Yeah. That couldn't happen in 2012 when he voted in Wilton because he wrote a 300-word essay about it and put it on the Daily Kos. Okay. Now back to Jenna Rackavan. Jenna Rackavan, her name comes up on the list. So my obligation is when Dave sends me 50 names, I go down through the names. I have some highlighted. I got about a third of these are voters in other states. Like this, I can't give the names out now, but the second guy on the list I have is being in Maine. A couple others. I got one in Dover, Delaware. Votes in Dover, New Hampshire, but she lives in Dover, Delaware. That all of her data comes back there, and you find these interesting names.
Name city. Come on.
Like Jenna Rackavan is one of a kind. So I go through those names first. Robert Baker was hard to catch. Once I had the middle name and I had his birth date, then all of his other addresses in Dover line up. His 2 phone numbers with a 603 area code and a Florida area code match up. So when you do those numbers, it comes up Robert D. Baker. So I have him. Now, he voted in Florida according to Florida's records, and he voted here according to our records. So now I turn him into Florida, which I've done. And they'll decide if he really does live in Florida, in Parkland, Florida, he'll get a letter from the elections board down there saying, could you tell us, where you're voting? They can instantly go see where his driver's license is located. Does he have a Florida license or a New Hampshire license? So, back to Jenna Rackavan. 29 years old, so she's been a UNH student. So I imagine she's been indoctrinated to how things work here. I'm having trouble understanding why Jenna Rackavan, who is street name St. John 2C, apartment 2C, or 2C address in St. John, which the post office says is number 2. That is no such number. So if you have a driver's license in New Hampshire and this is your address, how's that work? Did you give a bad address to New Hampshire for your driver's license, or is your driver's license at 70 Bayberry Road in Phoenixville, PA, 19460? I remember that zip code because that's where I used to live, in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I know where her house is, and if Jenna listens to this, I can tell her, Jenna, I used to eat at the G Lodge across the street from your parents' house. So that'll be a little creepy. The hair on the back of the neck will stand up. So what I've done is I got a Chester County Voter Services envelope, and I mailed this off. And this is the application. This is why this takes so long. If you're wondering why you can't just catch these people, you have to fill out these forms and request the data like I did with Jared Stephen Cram. And then I have a little note here. Oh, by the way, she votes in New Hampshire as well. And then I'll contact them after they send me this stuff. So I send this out. I get back everything I can possibly get on Jenna, and then we go on the radio and probably tweet her or email her and say, hey, would you like to respond? So her response is going to be, I'm the only Jenna Rackavan in America. Someone voted by my name in New Hampshire. Maybe that happened. Somebody just thought up the name Jenna Rackavan.
Yeah, we've heard that one before.
Yeah, I'll just vote here and I'll use the name Jenna Rackavan. That'll work. So were you somewhere else, Jenna? Because once we go public with you, you have some explaining to do.
Well, you said that as soon as you went after Gerald Cram, you heard from the AG's office indirectly.
Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, so now are you going to hear from them again? Because obviously they're tracking you.
Yeah, what I'll do is what I did in the case of Jared Cram. I did a right-to-know request to the Secretary of State's office, and I said, can I have all correspondence between October 10th and October 21st regarding the town of Wilton where he voted? And they sent me like 6 pages of stuff. So I have that. So they may be smart enough not to do that again, because that builds my case. What in the world, weeks before the election here in New Hampshire, is the Secretary of State's office doing an internal investigation into Jared Cram because I said his name over Rich Gerard's radio program in Manchester? Aren't we busy over there before an election? We have time to look up and make sure that Jared doesn't get in trouble. So, in any case, Jared's in trouble.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This one's...
Not here, but in Pennsylvania,
why would
right?
that be?
Well, I turned him over to some authorities in Pennsylvania. So this one's confidential. I'll just pass it around, and you guys can go, ooh, ah, and I think the viewers and readers, listeners, will understand. So what we do is, in New Hampshire, I can't get information on a voter, even though the voters voted. They don't receive mail a couple of weeks after the election. We don't keep enough information on them, like birth dates and where they last voted and real addresses. You can vote. Apparently, you could vote with a phony address or a made-up address or insufficient address or no such street. You can just walk in and make up a street. As long as you have a driver's license from any state, you can vote in New Hampshire. So I've abandoned that effort. The heck with New Hampshire. I go to the other state. Now, Susan, in other states, they seem to care whether or not somebody votes in Pennsylvania and in New Hampshire, because sometimes you belong to associations that might be interested in that. So we go wherever the path will lead to correct the situation. So after we are finished with Jared, Stephen Cram, and Jenna, maybe Jenna can respond to Pennsylvania authorities, and I'll get a copy of that. And she can easily explain why maybe she has a twin sister with the exact same name, or that there was nowhere else for her to vote, so she went to an anonymous address in Dover and voted there.
I like the top of what it says here on this.
Yeah, you
I'm
can't
not going to
read
read it. I'm not going to read it, but
that might jeopardize my hearing.
But this is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So Mr. Cram is not like most of the voters. So there'll eventually be a spot on the wall here for a trophy. You know, like a head on a board shaped like Jared Cram.
See, all we need is to get a scan of his head. We'll get somebody with a 3D printer, and we literally could make a trophy head for
his
you.
picture's on the front page of CNHT's website. Jenna will go up shortly. If you look her up on the internet, you'll see there's pictures of her in there holding fish and whatnot. She's holding all kinds of records and things for she's a biologist, so that's what she does. Travels around.
Could we call this a cram down, or should we hold that statement for a couple of weeks?
Well, hang on. We've had a lot of fun with Jared because he responded to a tweet that Rich Gerard sent him. Like that day. I can't believe he did it. He's apparently not very smart for being a member of Mensa. But that's Jenna Rackovan. JennaRackovan. Jenna Rackovan of 70 Bayberry Drive, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. 19460 is voting in New Hampshire from an address that does not exist according to the post office and 2 mailings. So I'll get back to Dave. I'll get a copy of the envelopes that were sent back saying no such address or no such street.
Well, it seems to me there's an open opportunity here in this case because she lives in Pennsylvania, or her parents do. So
that's where she votes from.
She has an anchor address.
Yep.
She's voted in New Hampshire, but she's located at Rutgers.
Correct.
So anybody want to bet whether she's voted at Rutgers?
Already checked. She's not listed in New Jersey's database. So we caught 3 first before. We caught people registered in 3 states and D.C.
Who have also answered tweets from Rich Gerard's show.
You got to wonder. So maybe Jenna, we have some email for her. We'll send her an email and see if she can straighten this out. I know New Hampshire's not interested.
No, not at all.
So why would they care if I do it?
Yeah, it seems to me.
I'm not charging them anything. I'm doing this for free, right?
Seems
to
public
me service.
We could drop a couple of hints and have the New Hampshire Secretary.
Bill Gardner?
Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Follow up on false leads and just see how.
That's what I'm looking for. See, I'm basically. You could make the argument that I'm intimidating Jenna.
You?
Right. Voter
Really?
intimidation's a crime. So I would be interested in having a visit from somebody, some authority, and then we could play this out in a courtroom somewhere, and I could prove whether or not I'm right, or Jen is right, or Jared Cram is right, Jared Stephen Cram, or Robert D. Baker is right, or Caitlin Ann Lagaki is right.
Tell me something. Smile, please. Does that look like an intimidating face?
Oh. It's apparently it was several times because it's been punched.
This
So,
whole
I've had 12 stitches in this thing.
As has been quoted from somewhere in the Florida bunker, he's just a harmless, lovable little fuzzball.
So that's how you track voter fraud. And here's the other thing that why I go on the radio and I do workshops. We need tips. Jared came from a tip of somebody who went to one of my workshops. So they knew what to look for, and they handed us like a tuna. You know, here you are. So, I mean, this guy we tracked him. We got everything on him. So it's a wonderful catch. It's always encouraging to go back to Jared, and Jared has a future with us, as you can see from the letter. Either way,
well, we can explore that future shortly. We're going to take 60 seconds, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Welcome back. Talking about vote fraud.
Honky tonk.
Honky tonk vote fraud. You know, I was thinking it's got to be pretty hard to prove vote suppression because all you really need is an envelope and a stamp and an absentee ballot from any place, really. Mm-hmm. And then you could vote just like you thought you lived in New Hampshire because they do that here all the time. They vote absentee here from wherever the heck they are in the world, and they claim to vote absentee from addresses in our state. So, I mean, if that's the case, then what's the big deal? This person clearly is allowed to vote from anywhere they want. How could I possibly suppress their vote?
Yeah, it wasn't suppressed up to this point.
Nope.
But I'm going to pick somebody. I'm not sure whether it's going to be Jared or not. If Pennsylvania resolves Jared's issue to my satisfaction, we'll just use him as an example.
Oh, it's an excellent example, too, because, I mean,
we got
if you
multiple ways.
All you have to do is say to people, look, nobody in this state, is going to punish you for being registered and voting in 2 states. But that doesn't mean your home state won't punish you, which is exactly what you're doing.
We've been saying that since 2000.
Yeah.
Or so social media.
Now we're starting to, it's look up Caitlin Ann Lagaki sometime or Janice Rottenberg. Janice Rottenberg. Yeah. It's, hi, I'm Janice Rottenberg on Google, and the next 15 articles are low-life vote thieves. So go try and get a job someplace other than a campaign. Campaigns would love you.
Oh, yeah.
I know one guy we caught was
plaque on the wall.
Jeff Witrowski. He's got himself a really good job with the AFL-CIO. So they're looking for people like that, apparently, that
crooks.
Vote multiple states.
Yeah, they need crooks.
That know how to do vote fraud.
Right to the top. So what we're doing now is following up on what Dave Scott has done in Dover, and that is by simply mailing people who voted letters, getting those letters back and saying, let's do it again. We send them another letter, and you have those 2 facts in your hand. You have their name on the checklist, and all I need to prove that somebody voted in New Hampshire is that their name is checked off the checklist. I don't have to show it was that person because that's a public document. So if I say, Jared Stephen Cram is on that checklist, I'm good to go. No one can say, oh, you're just making this up, or this is personal, or you can't prove it. All I have to do is say, there we go. That vote was eliminated. Someone else's vote was eliminated because that name was checked off. That's all I have to prove. So I've gone that step. We have the list of who voted, and then I go to the internet and say, wow, look at this. I found your name, your same middle. It's Jenna L. Rakovan. Got your middle initial. I got your birth date in another state. Now you've got some explaining to do. Not to New Hampshire, but the state you're from. Pennsylvania is interesting, and I like catching people from Pennsylvania because Title 25 is their election law. Title 25, 1302B. When one enters another state and votes in any of that state's elections, you lose your residency in the Commonwealth. So,
which would also mean your driver's license would be revoked.
When you go back to vote again, they say, well, you've been removed, or you're going to get a letter from the state saying you're gone. So and other states have different statutes as well. North Carolina the same way. If you vote, I believe North Carolina is one of the 8 or so. If you vote in another state, you lose your residency. In some states, residency is very important for getting driver's license, anything. So it's a mark on your record. It's going to be on the internet because we have enough internet impact that whatever any of us write is on there within minutes. You can pull it up, and it doesn't go away for a long time. So that's our method for catching them. Thank you very much for the state of New Hampshire for absolutely no help and actually being a stumbling block. Bill Gardner was reelected, reappointed, reanointed as Secretary of State again.
Secretary of State for life?
For life.
Why wouldn't he be? There's been a succession of Democrat governors or
Well, he's elected by the House, I believe. He's never had another job. He's never had another job, and he's also a double dipper.
That's all I know how to do.
I think he should retire. He had a golden opportunity to not run again, so if this blows up in everybody's face, that's the face everybody's going to look at.
Well, question, we've made the statement before that if you're looking for normal work outside of politics, this is going to haunt you. Mm-hmm. And you just said, but campaigns are looking for this. Is it really the case? And I'll say on both sides of the aisle, where if you are a very good pitcher, say, to use a Major League Baseball analogy here, you're known for throwing spitballs and beaning people and stuff, but if you put up lots of W's, they're going to hire you and pay you well anyways. Is that what we're seeing with Jared Cram and some of these other folks?
Yeah, look at the, not particularly voting, but the 2 young ladies that used to work for Senator Schumer that got caught going into the credit card history of somebody, Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. Remember that? Those guys, and they've had a nice little career for themselves doing stuff like that, getting access to stuff. What are they buying with their credit card? What movies do they rent? That kind of stuff to use in campaigns. So
what did they go after Michael Steele?
Yeah. So I can see that, and we know that Jeff Wachowski's done pretty well for himself. He's gotten himself out of North Dakota, and he has a nice job and a new husband down in D.C. Works down there. On the Republican side, I find random. We get registered Republicans that we catch in 2 states. I'm working on a couple of those. But it's college students usually. And you never know whether somebody's registered as a Republican or a Democrat for some other nefarious reason, too.
That's true.
Some people are tactical, party members. Like, I'm a Democrat. Been a Democrat since 2005. So you never know. So what I do is I don't really care what party. If I see your name on 2 checklists, I see your name in 2 states or 3 states or 4 states, well then you go to the top of our list.
Yeah, and, I just look at this and kind of keep thinking, especially with all the stuff going on, like as I sent out a couple of links last night to our internal Grok crew list, with Obama's amnesty, it's now turning out they're going to get worker registration cards, the workers' permits. They're going to be campaigns too. They're going to be able to get the driver's licenses. Yep. They're basically going to get all of the documentation
and earned income tax credits.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that. But they're getting everything that the normal person at the voting hall is going to say, are you a U.S. citizen? Because you're not supposed to have a driver's license unless...
They'll say C.
Yeah, so basically, for all these little cases that you're going after now, they're thinking 5 to 10 million illegal aliens will now be able to vote as U.S. citizens. Right. And I'm back to the statement of what's the use of being a U.S. citizen if anybody can vote? Our last
right. We are honest enough not to vote because we know that simply having a green card does not, in fact, entitle us.
I'd catch you the next day.
It entitles me to pay taxes. It allows me to participate in campaigns and donate, but it does not permit me to vote.
When you look at all these people that are moving in, right? Don't think for a nanosecond that Obama's crowd doesn't know who they are, where they're going to live. They'll be in contact with community organizers. They'll work on campaigns. They'll vote. They'll move here and there to vote. That's how this works.
They may even be located strategically in districts they want to tip.
We actually have some leads in Manchester, in areas where we would find people who probably are in that category. So I have some. I'll help you when you're ready to do it out of Manchester and Nashua. So that's my next move.
I'm going to kind of take the tack of somebody who's a good citizen but looks at all this stuff going on and saying the Democrats are all in favor of this. Mm-hmm. They're playing not so much we're trying to protect Congress, which we're elected to. We're not protecting and adhering to their oath to protect the Constitution. They're protecting Obama. They're very open about it. They're protecting their ideology. A lot of good citizens who aren't as involved as we are saying, what's the sense of even trying anymore? I mean, it is rather disheartening that these guys can vote. They're going to get all the entitlements that I have to pay for that they shouldn't be. They just keep going down the list, and it gets longer and longer and longer. It's like, what is this? Why am I fighting?
We'll have a tipping point.
Yeah, and the question is, how soon
doesn't bother me at all. I mean, treading water is no fun. I'd rather land on the beach and have it over with. So if we get to a tipping point, we have remedies in our Constitution for that as well. We have a Second Amendment. We have plenty of opportunities in the states, 50 states, to protect the states from the federal government. So that's where it's headed.
Well,
and if you look
wait a minute, though. But they're now pushing that the federal law trumps the state law. We're seeing in state after state where the state said we're not going to give illegals a driver's license, and now the federal law is forcing them to do that. Well, so what is the remedy?
The remedy is
for the states to say, hell no, you can't make us.
But they're not.
Well, they are in Alabama right now with the homosexual marriage deal. Yeah, some of the judges saying you didn't win in all 50 of our counties, so you haven't won.
Yeah.
So it's gradual. The gradual effort to make us into a socialist utopia is slow, and there'll be one incident that flips this. There'll be some impact on the American psyche where something happens and they go, that's it, that's enough.
Isn't that Roy Moore saying, "So sue me again" down in Alabama?
Yeah,
he's a fabulous guy.
But he got on the news with Chris Cuomo.
Yes,
and said our rights don't come from God. Those little things where you get a good look at your opponent, your political opponent, and these talking heads that run the news, you say, that guy, why is he even there?
Okay,
that's the trigger.
Let's be careful, because that's something I want to bring up, because Steve had put up a post talking directly to that.
We're out of time.
We're out of time.
Dang.
Well,
next segment.
Josh is running a couple minutes late, so we can pick it back up on the other side of the end of the segment, and then he'll be here to talk about.
My voter fraud stuff's done, though.
Okay,
got that in.
So we can talk about that when we come back on GrokTALK.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by SaberPac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jeanne Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jeanne Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jeanne Shaheen she's made healthcare worse. Few things are as important as finding the right doctor. And under Obamacare, that's
harder than ever. Over a third of our hospitals no longer available. Our doctors no longer covered. Fewer choices, longer drives. No state has been harder hit than us. And even after watching it impact New Hampshire, Congresswoman Ann Custer still supports it. Call Ann Custer. Tell her Obamacare isn't working for New Hampshire.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, we are GrokTALK, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Beautiful Concord, New Hampshire. Cold. We have a blizzard/hurricane coming, a winter hurricane, also known as a blizzard. Named, is it named something? Did we talk about the name? Who is it? Oh, Hosmer. Hosmer. Oh, yeah, we're going to have to do the Hosmer thing. Josh should be here in the next few minutes. He did say he was coming, so you can sit until he gets here if you want. You know, and we can talk about Hurricane Hosmer. So,
is it going to be a snow job?
Is it going to be a snow job? Oh, I could turn that headset off because it's not on your head yet, and it'd make all kinds of noise when you're moving it around. Anyway, it is cold. It is wintry. It will continue for at least another 6 weeks. You know, so.
It's also Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. It's Valentine's Day. Well, you know, we were talking after the show. We go get hot dogs sometimes, and that's not happening because I, for example, have to rush home so I can go to lunch with my wife because we can't go to dinner because we don't know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, we came down yesterday from the mountain, and we had our Valentine's lunch yesterday.
So did we.
Yeah.
Huh. Where'd you go?
Olive Garden.
Mike brought Mama here.
Yeah, well, I got home just after midnight, and Mama did me the favor of picking me up from the airport.
That's tough. And then you're here in the morning.
Right.
No,
yeah, winter is for lovers. We're going to get home, dig out the log pile from the snow that's already on it from last week, and get plenty of logs in the house so that we can have a nice roaring log fire for this evening.
That's very nice.
While it's flaky outside.
While it's flaky outside.
Well, at the end of last segment, Mike brought up Chris. No, was it one of these two? Either
Mike or
you
Ed.
or
Ed.
Or Ed brought up Chris Cuomo, and yeah, he was talking with the judge out of Alabama, saying and the judge is going on, and Ed left it sort of like the judge was saying that our rights come from men, and that was not quite right. Although that is, I think, the important part. That was said by Chris Cuomo. Offspring of former Mario Cuomo and brother of current Andrew Cuomo.
Former or late?
Late.
Well, yes. He was the former governor.
Yes.
And the late.
I
don't know, maybe
late personage.
Did a Chelsea Manning thing or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And, the judge is saying, quoting, and I think I put the post up. Maybe I did.
Well, this is Roy Moore. He's saying our rights come from God because he was the guy that had the Ten Commandments in his courtroom.
Right, and that's what it's always been quoted that our rights come from God. That's from the Declaration of Independence and has been enshrined ever since by the Founding Fathers. And Chris Cuomo basically said, no, it's not. It comes from men and our collective agreement about what your rights are, which is an extremely scary thought, because once it devolves from God, which is an absolute value, an absolute right, which shall not be touched, but when you get into the mindset that God no longer, or nature's God no longer is important in this thing, and progressivism is nothing but relativism, that if men can decide what your rights are, then your rights aren't rights at all. They're just merely whims of the political wind at that particular time. And it's scary to think about that.
And you have mob rule.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what they designed the Constitution to prevent, not only by making the people the sovereigns, but by ensuring that the smaller political units had the strong control of local affairs, whether it be the towns, the counties, the states, and that all the way to the federal government. I nearly said the top, but really it's the bottom, is that the individuals and the states exercise control thereover. And of course, the 17th Amendment undid some of that.
People have such a flimsy grasp of the idea of natural rights. I mean, the minute you say God, all the atheists and the agnostics are like, "Oh, God, run away!" But really, if you're talking about natural rights, you are born somewhere in the world. There is no civilization. What are your rights? You have a right to defend your person and your property,
to speak,
and you have the right to speak your mind. And there's other ones, but basically, those are the ones you can grasp. If you were born in the middle of a forest and you and your family are there, and you're scraping together a living in your cave, do you have a right to what you've done? Do you have a right to defend your person, or can somebody else in a different cave come and take it?
Well, if they're Democrats.
If they're Democrats, they can. If a flock of ring-necked Hosmer geese come and they eat all your berries,
and then poop all over your yard,
like
and
geese,
peck at you,
like geese do,
and then get mad at you because they're pecking at you and you're trying to keep them away. People need to grasp it. It's so simple. It's really that simple.
If Democrats were just marauding geese, they'd all be dead by now.
I was talking about the natural rights, not the marauding geese. That's different.
Well, here's the deal. A right is something that you get, that you have innately, that you can exhibit and exercise without the permission or dependency of anybody else. And the converse is also true. My right to free speech does not mean that you have to listen to me.
You can walk away.
You can walk away. You can even take your free speech and scream back at me. My right to self-defense is not dependent on anybody else. We see the perversion of the word rights so often nowadays because, healthcare is a right, education is a right, and in the gun rights environment, we're saying I have a right to a safe environment.
You have a right to educate yourself. You have a right to care for your own health.
Right, but in all of this,
you don't have a right to make me do it.
But their version of a right means somebody else has to provide it for me. I am entitled to the fruits of your labor. I am entitled to your intellectual prowess or the strength of your back in order for me to exercise my full right. And that's where I get upset because you're right, Steve. The educational system has so perverted our base understanding of what things are. There's no wonder why we're losing our republic.
Well, that and I at a leadership level, it's clear that the statists know what they're doing, and they know that the state has to take over everything in order to do what they want it to do and to keep them in power. At the lower level, I believe that people just think that it's the government tree and that they're entitled to the fruits thereof, and they have no knowledge of how that tree gets nourished. Unless we show it to them that the tree has to be nourished by the blood of revolution from time to time, they don't understand that what they pick off the branches of that tree is sucked out of our pockets by the roots.
Well, it's also the changes in culture. You think about, and this is speaking from a female's perspective, young women that were born after, or in the few years leading up to the Supreme Court decision on Roe versus Wade, grew up in a world that said, well, yeah, abortion's not a big deal, and unless they took the time to educate themselves, or their parents, or their school, or their church, or their peers said, well, no, wait a minute, this is not what we believe, this is not what we think is right. Part of it is, unless your behavior has been corrected, you don't necessarily know. How many people rely on their instincts to do the right thing? I think most people do. Okay, I hope. Most people do. But unless that behavior's been corrected, how do you know any different?
In the abortion battle has been a lot. I mean, things are getting a little better. Overall, you've seen some improvement in perception about the debate on that issue, but it's been a long time, and it flipped so quickly that.
But it's not even abortion. It's anything else that culture deems is okie dokie now. If you don't know any better, if this is what you learn, if this is what your peers believe, if no one has said you're grounded, why would you think any differently? How many people are independent students or thinkers?
Well, now we have to go back into history, and a part of history that most people don't understand. And if I say the Frankfurt School here in this room, most of you will understand what that was.
They make hot dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay.
No. This, coming out of Prussia and Germany, this was the school of thought that was advancing socialism, that was de rigueur.
They made
in the
wieners.
1880s. And, when the wars were coming through, they settled here in America to push progressive ideas, and they said, well, they'll never revolt here like they have in other countries, so we will have to change the culture. And that's when they ascended into the ivory tower and other areas to change the popular culture, including Hollywood, to unmoor us from our traditional values.
Right.
And that's what you see is we are in a culture war. We are in a culture of values.
Well, as I say, they would never revolt here. They knew that the people would not rise up at the government in the traditional sense because they didn't feel oppressed and because they knew they had the rights and the rights to defend themselves from government. So they've had to change the culture so that people don't perceive that they have the right to defend themselves from government, and rather that they are subjects of government.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair statement.
And it's very clear when you look at, the eldest's significant other is going to school, elementary ed, special ed, and she was told outright, your job is to monitor parents. We cannot allow kids to have their parents' values. Is the next step. And I have seen this and commented and blogged about it before.
I would love to have that on video.
I have some of that on video because I've been to the school board meetings.
I mean at the ed level.
Oh, at the ed level?
To have a professor teaching a future teacher that is their job, that would be earth-shattering.
If you go, there are a lot of progressive social justice warrior type sites. We all have seen the examples of Common Core and some of the stuff that they're putting up, like the latest one going around. Again, I can't blog it all. I can't even get a gazillionth of it all up. But there's this political cartoon of the Democrat laying the bricks for the road for the poor, and the Republican on the other side taking up the bricks. I mean, that's the portrayal that we see essentially over and over again. The Republicans hate the poor, want to kill off the poor, and the Democrats love the poor.
No, we don't want them to be poor anymore.
Yeah,
right.
well, that's the difference.
And the Democrats love the poor because they want there to be more of them.
But the imagery is important because it sends a message, and people connect to that message, and they believe what they see as correct, and it's not.
And you see,
because it's harder to explain to somebody that whole give a man a fish thing. I mean, people are like, yeah, aphorism, whatever it is, I don't care. But until you put it into practice and say, look, ask yourself this question. We just, like as an example, here's another $200 billion we're going to get from the federal government to give people health insurance because they got kicked off their other health insurance because of this particular piece of legislation or whatever we did. They became dependent. They need the money, and the people who gave it to you are so deep in debt that at some point they're going to have to cut something, okay? Now,
and you don't want it to be you, so you're going to vote for them.
When all of that cutting starts, and we know it happens, it has to happen. There's no,
it's happening here where they're taking money away from senior.
Hasn's already doing it.
Senior
it's
care
one
homes
freaking year, not even 12 months.
Yeah.
And we're already doing it.
And
so
who do we blame?
Yeah.
Jeb Bradley, Jeannie Forrester.
But you can't go to a well
Odell.
that's empty and think you're going to get a drink. That's the problem. Yeah. And people have been convinced that there's always going to be water there. And there isn't. And when there isn't, that's why people are called preppers, because they know that when you put everybody on welfare and the train hits the end of the tracks, somebody's going to be pissed off.
Well, I mean, people getting ready for a snowstorm. All right. Think about it. When I was coming back yesterday from my Valentine lunch, we always look as we get off the exit there and see what's going on in the Market Basket parking lot.
Oh yeah, you'd think it was Armageddon.
You would absolutely think it's
the
Armageddon.
Rhode Islanders joke about Cumberland Farms.
Yeah,
and the
people,
shelves being emptied. That's the convenience stores.
Yeah, and they're going to Home Depot and looking for generators. Right?
Yeah, now.
Or shovels.
Or
snow
no brushes.
Oh,
and if there's not any, they're outraged.
Well, you put me in that same group. I had to go buy a new shovel. The youngest broke it.
But different.
Well, there you go. There's a different thing. But 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Yeah. So I bought 2 more.
There you go.
Yeah,
Going back to
I had one slightly cracked shovel and one good one, and the handle broke on my good one, so now I have one good shovel because I put the pieces back together.
There you go.
I mean,
but it's sad because when you pit people one against the other, and they have to worry about whether their kids are going to get fed, or I don't know. I guess that's the most elemental thing. Whether you've got a roof over your head or you can, put gas in your car to go to work. When you're and we talk about this all the time, when you're so focused on making it through the night to the next day, all of this other stuff doesn't matter. And whoever is going to give some food to your kid so you don't have to kill somebody to get it, you're going to go back to them and you're not going to aggravate them because you need them for your child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's how Democrat government would like you to be.
Exactly. And what is more evil? What is more evil than holding your children hostage to force you to do what they want?
Romney certainly took it in the shorts about his 47% statement. But now we see the Democrats being open about it. They've admitted we're doing this to get the votes. They've said it. I've read it. And these are not just the backbenchers. These are the high-profile folks saying we need to do this. They want to change society, just like Labour did in Britain, where they wanted a whole new population. Well, how's that working out for them now? Not so well.
Not too well. Well, the other thing they wanted, of course, because they were effectively the party of the unions, they wanted communism. They wanted to nationalize every little itty piece of business. I mean, they owned the telephones, the post office, the railroads, the sugar company, the steel company, the
coal mines,
the car company, the coal mines.
Yay, Josh is here.
And sure enough,
Mr. Baer.
Sure enough, most of it stopped working.
Yeah, it did. Margaret Thatcher was right.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and swap some seats, and we'll be right back because our guests are here. Stay tuned.
Cool.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
All right, this is GrokTALK. We got a lot of folks in here today. Just stick it on your head. And we're going to run this segment into the next segment because they just got here and we have plenty to talk about and all kinds of fun stuff going on in the great town of Guilford, New Hampshire, once again in the news. Yes?
Yes. Absolutely.
Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, Josh Youssef, Mr. William Baer, Susan Olson is behind me, as is Marmar Rogers.
That is correct.
I am Steve McDonald. We are GrokTALK.
You are. We are.
We are.
We all are.
We all are. It's not the same without us. I mean, I may do a lot of the work, but it's not the same if we don't have everybody. Or at least half of everybody.
We're inclusive.
We're inclusive. We're commune. It's a podcast commune.
Let's not go that far.
All right, no, it's not. We're gonna
nap.
We're gonna stop the conversation that's going on over there, so we can do what we came here for, which was to have a conversation on the air. All right, I'm gonna wait for Mr. Bear to put his headset on, and we're gonna talk about Guilford. You're all stretched out of there. I have a feeling there's a better conversation going on off there than on. It's just a feeling I have. All right.
All right, here we go.
Everybody's here. So there's I'm just kind of poking around the internet.
I just looked up. It's Mr. Incognito Man.
Yeah, fabulous. I'm poking around the internet and I find this nice article on WND with a picture of Josh's face, and he's really happy.
That was an old picture when I was happy.
The picture's out of context.
Yeah, I know, but that's the picture they chose, and then I'm like, well, what's this? What's going on here?
Oh, man.
And I took a look, and I'm like, oh, it's Guilford.
Yes,
Welcome home.
And I have to apologize to Josh. You sent me that stuff after the call, and then I got sick. And as I've been saying all morning so far, my memory is just so shot to ribbons that what I talk about in the beginning of the day, I can't remember that's what I'm supposed to be writing about by the end of the day.
No worries.
So please preface our topic.
Well, I'll preface it by saying that in New Hampshire, under RSA 570-A:2, individual citizens like all of us in the room here are prosecuted and find themselves on the chopping block with major prison penalties for wiretapping. And it was recently discovered by Billy's children, and we kind of dug in. We dug in a little deeper with some 91As that the town of Guilford has, with impunity, been recording students wholesale, audio recording and video recording with no notification on the buses, which is required under the statute, and they just think they can get away with this stuff. And so we submitted some 91As over to Kent Hemingway, which is the superintendent of the SAU,
Where
whatever
have I
it is.
heard that name before?
73, is that what it is?
I think it's 73.
SAU 73. And he called me, and so we had a brief conversation. He's like, oh, well, we have it in our handbook, and our handbook's on the website. Do you want me to print that out for you? I'm like, no, that's fine. I'll take the one that's on on the website. That's fine.
So this is Billy. In the handbook, they actually cite the statute.
They cite the statute.
Verbatim.
And so on the bus, there are absolutely no notices whatsoever, but the children, all 46 or 53 of them, or however many kids are on this bus, are being eavesdropped upon, not necessarily by a party to the conversation, but by a third party. Basically, it's an eye in the sky looking down and recording 40, 50, 60 conversations going on at any given time on every single bus. So over the course of how many years? 3, 4, 5 years?
It seems
there
like
could
we're
be
not sure yet, but it
tens
seems
of
like it.
thousands of individual counts of illegal wiretapping going on by the town of Guilford and its transportation partner, First Student, which is, by the way, the largest transportation conglomerate in the world, $7 billion, headquartered in Great Britain, has 66,000 vehicles and 65,000 employees. Yeah. So this is not a company. This is not, Bob and Sally's bus company, and their compliance department, is in a folder in their basement. This is a company that has a legal team, presumably larger than the state of New Hampshire's legal team.
Yeah. Now the question is when Kent said, "Well, it's posted on our website," can he prove when that was put up there? Because we're being the geeks that we are, we know that we can make a change to except for the New Hampshire GOP, which doesn't seem to understand the concept. They can't update their website, on time. But, you can update a website in 30 seconds if you wanted
From my phone. I mean,
yeah.
Well, here's the thing. The 91A request, the first one is due today. So, of course, they'll have the benefit of Monday.
No, they won't.
That's right, because of the snowstorm, right?
No, President's Day.
Oh, President's and a snowstorm. So Tuesday.
And then there's Tuesday, Wednesday, there's another storm coming. So you might have to wait till the end of the week.
And he'll close school.
Might be until the spring.
Yeah, exactly. July 4th.
Groundhog Day means 6 more weeks for you waiting for your right to know.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we're going to know, I think I shared the 91As with you.
Yes.
We're very particular
and I will post them.
Terrific. About the data that we're looking for. I mean, I want purchase orders. I want to know every conversation between and betwixt all of the people that are responsible for posting these signs, signage manufacturers, paid invoices, bank distributions. I want to know specifically when these signs were posted, at what point did they come into compliance, and then I want proof that they were in compliance up to the date, the day before they proved that they were in compliance.
Well, here's a little tangential offspring here. I was going to ask Ed about it because he was at the hearing. I read a piece on. He was testifying at a hearing where they want to put through a bill that will allow government to more highly charge you for submitting such requests because it costs so much money to do this, and obviously those in government are in favor of this.
HB 646.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I called it an act making public information a luxury item.
Oh yes, you did. Okay, good. I'm glad you got that.
They'll probably put a luxury tax on it.
Then tax the cost on the right to know. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I missed that because Avast kind of took over my computer.
But I mean, what kind of transparency is that when you're burdening the customer? I almost call the citizen,
right,
with a financial obligation.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they won't stall long enough to see that bill pass, and then they can come back
today
and
is
say,
day number 10.
Well, they just have to tell you when. They don't actually have to hand it over.
I haven't heard anything from them. Nothing.
Well, the reality is that there's not that much that's in dispute. Kent Hemingway essentially, or literally, admitted that they've been out of compliance. We have video that's really not quite public yet. Video that shows that he said that there was only one bus that he knew of that was out of compliance. They've taken care of it. They've remediated the problem. Everything's fine. Go back to work. But the reality is we have video showing that there were at least half the fleet in Guilford, at least half the fleet that we've looked into was out of compliance, that they had no signs that were posted in conjunction with the audio and video.
Okay.
So.
And off camera, we have a question from Susan. I need a fisheye lens.
Since when are people allowed to videotape minors at all without their permission or their parents' permission? Since when can you videotape a minor child without their knowledge or their parents' knowledge?
There's actually an exception carved out in the statute to the wiretap law.
That you can videotape minors.
It's actually a section entitled Video and Audio Recording on School Buses. So it's specifically tailored to school buses. And they said you're accepted from
the prohibition.
From the prohibition on wiretapping, but you must follow these specific procedures.
They're very simple and they're not onerous.
They're not burdensome whatsoever. The first procedure is that the school board needs to establish a policy and permit this behavior to happen on the buses, or this practice to happen.
Just a footnote, the policy needs to be approved by the parents. There needs to be a public hearing, public input, so that's really the component that's outstanding at this point. We're not sure if they even complied with that aspect of it before they implemented this surveillance.
So you're suggesting, we're going to take a quick break and come back on this, but you might be suggesting that a school board kind of didn't want public comment? Is that?
No, they wouldn't do that.
They wouldn't do that. All right, we're going to be right back. We're going to continue this into segment 4, and we're going to suck all of segment 4 up with it because it's a great topic. We'll be right back.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor. Because Obamacare limits your choices, some will have to drive more than an hour to see a doctor. What's health insurance worth if care isn't there when you need it? Jean Shaheen voted for Obamacare, putting your doctors and hospitals further out of reach. Tell Senator Shaheen Obamacare is not working for New Hampshire.
Jean Shaheen and her allies are making false claims about her record on veterans. The truth? Shaheen refused to meet with veterans pushing for reform. She wasn't on the committee that wrote the reform legislation and refused to co-sponsor important VA reforms in the VA Management Accountability Act until after the VA scandal broke. When our veterans needed her, Jean Shaheen was AWOL. Tell Jean Shaheen to stop distorting the truth and fix the VA.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, Grok Talk, Concord, New Hampshire, CNHT, GraniteGrok.com, room full of people, and we're talking about Guilford, New Hampshire, and the school district, and some wiretapping violations, or the presumption of such, and evidence, and all kinds
in
of
the whole nine. Yeah.
evidence in the whole nine, and there's evidence, and it's Guilford.
The thing that's particularly disturbing is that these people aren't contrite, and they weren't contrite when they made the mistake, when they violated Billy's civil rights by wrongfully arresting him, and then after they prosecuted him for 7 months or 8 months, and then the judge basically said, "This is ridiculous."
Oh, I know. I read about that.
I'm paraphrasing.
Congratulations, by the way. It's chilling. Those are the words.
Yes. And instead of coming
Judge
out,
Carroll for doing the right thing.
and instead of coming back and saying, we respect the court's opinion, and we're glad that we put this matter to bed, they doubled down and they said, well, we still think that he violated this and that.
Oh, yeah. That was our police chief, too.
Yeah, well.
Our new police
That's
chief.
another show.
That's a separate show.
Yes.
Like he needs exposing.
Maybe.
That might be that horse might have left the stable already.
We'll schedule that segment later.
Yeah,
So,
that's maybe 2
But anyways,
shows.
the point is had Guilford been contrite and truly apologetic, they would have come out, gotten in front of the ball, put a statement on their website, on the SAU's website, and said, listen, we're deeply apologetic. We're very, very sorry that we've been recording your children. We didn't follow the policies. We remediated the problem immediately, and we're ready to take our penalty. I would have a little bit of respect for them.
I'm going to get quoted on this, and I really don't care, because being on the budget committee, I've been seeing this same attitude from the Guilford School Board for years, and it certainly hasn't changed. And I'm going to say this. I think we see but a definite trend towards autocratic despotism on that show.
That's right.
That whole show that's called the School Board. And I'm going to blame Sue Allen. She's been one of the constants there. Kurt Weber has been as well since I got involved deeply into Guilford politics. He has decided not to run for re-election. Sue Allen has. But I've already said I've signed up. I'm going to run for school board.
Terrific.
And one of my platforms will be greater civil engagement, because right now they believe they're above everybody else. And this is just one more instance of, who the heck are you to complain about us?
That's right.
Well, that's what I mean. You're saying above. They're in a position where they're essentially saying that they're above the law.
Yes.
And very clear criminal statutes we're talking about here. The idea, we all know people who've been put in state prison and in local jails for violating the same statute, not with the school bus per se, but in other manners, without even, unfortunately, unwittingly sometimes. And they're prosecuted routinely in this state. And for this municipality and for this school district and for this bus company to get away with this, possibly thousands and thousands and thousands of counts of illegal surveillance of our children who are minors is just absolutely outrageous. I mean, who do these people think they are that they could do this? And what is the community going to do?
Well,
are we going to just say it's a mistake?
It's for their safety.
It was an
Billy.
oversight. It was an oversight.
Safety.
Same issue of notice. It was an oversight. And it's amazing that last time when I went through, it's amazing that I came from New Jersey thinking I was going to get more liberty and a little more space and a little more freedom. And this is what I find myself in. But it's absolutely because I've never been involved with things like this in other areas.
I'm just curious, were these buses built with these cameras in them, or did they?
They've been retrofitted.
Okay, that's an interesting conversation, isn't it?
Certainly is.
And you were looking for information about that as well, right? Is that
Well,
part of the process of
we want to know the date
purchase
the cameras,
orders? And,
exactly, the purchase orders for the cameras.
yeah, because
the
you
dates they
don't.
were installed.
You don't accidentally kill somebody while you're cleaning your knife, and you don't accidentally put a camera in a bus that didn't have one. It just doesn't happen.
Well,
it's premeditated and deliberate.
You go in with your electronics bag and you go out, and the camera's mounted. Where's that camera?
This is really very simple. It's aside from the aspect of the statute in which they probably may not have complied. That is the proper procedure to implement this policy and these cameras, this surveillance to begin with. It's an issue of notice again, just like with what happened to me with my daughter. If they should have told me it was in the book, and we could have discussed it, and they should have been honest about what the offending parts might be, and we could have made an informed decision. But that's not what happened. It's the same thing again. They will not tell you what they're doing. They refuse to be transparent on what they're doing, and now they're violating criminal statute.
Yeah.
And it's just it cannot stand.
It all goes back to our friend Ian Underwood when he first testified on the gun bills last year, that if our elected legislators cannot respect our fundamental law, which is the Constitution and the plain words therein, why should we obey your laws? And from what I understand, and I wasn't there was a lot of disconcerted looks on the folks that were listening to the testimony. They just, what? And they think it's a given that they can write the laws for everybody else, that the laws that are in place are for everybody else, as you said, Billy, except for them. And we're seeing this over and over and over again. We talked earlier about Obama's executive amnesty, about basically becoming citizens by de facto, and the earned income credits that were started to be brought up, where the IRS has just decided, they are now owed or entitled to 3 years worth of back earned income tax credits up to $27,000 a year. And I'm going, this is my dismay that I expressed earlier. Is like, what is this country coming to? We used to value the rule of law, and now we see those in government openly flaunting it. And I can give you example after example after example after example after. Okay, that's enough. Over and over again, of where if those in government aren't going to follow the law or create law, let's see, who was it?
This is where you get to tax evasion in failing societies.
I think that this is button pushing. I think, at least on some level, they want very desperately to have an excuse to declare martial law.
100%.
And they are doing everything they can to piss off everybody they can so that somebody starts a rebellion somewhere and revolts, and that there's arms involved, and they will then bring the hammer down, call in the National Guard, and I'm going to hand my headset to Susan. Hang on.
Back home in Texas, we call it trading licks until somebody has had enough. So that's kind of what's happening.
But you also have to figure they're going to win either way, because while they're pushing our buttons, they are acclimating the masses to this new operating procedure, this new standard operating model. So many of the people that aren't interested in their privacy and their gun rights and their First Amendment rights, people that just could care less, they want to go along, they trust the government, they believe the government's there, they're going to go along with this new ratcheted up version of the government. Whereas if they do revolt, then they create... so under that first premise, they've now got more people on their side, and alternatively, they push the wrong button, one of our buttons, so to speak, and they have an excuse to declare martial law.
Yes, Reverend Nehemiah. First they came for the Jews.
That's it, yeah.
So as you think, back to Guilford, this bus company is this huge company. I mean, what degree of involvement do you expect a lot of pushback from the Big Brother bus line? Or? whatever you want to call them.
When you say pushback, I mean,
Well, I mean, they're involved somehow, right?
Well,
I mean, it's their buses.
Right. Well, they'll blame it on the school board. The school board will blame it on them. They'll probably blame it on my kids for talking on the bus or something that they shouldn't.
How dare you notice there's cameras on here?
Whatever. So I mean, basically, it's we're going to see what this legal system's really about. I mean, unfortunately, I had some very bad experience with how this works. I mean, Josh and I were just talking about this in the car. I worked in the district attorney's office in Bronx County, New York City, for 2 years in a major offense bureau, all felonies, murders, kidnappings, rapes, everything, armed robberies. And I literally saw people walk out of the courtroom who literally got away with murder. I saw it every day. And now I'm seeing it from the other perspective. I'm seeing innocent people who are pursued by the government for doing nothing illegal or immoral, or this is happening. And these people, this bus company and this school district need to be held accountable to the same criminal statute that we're held accountable to. And if not, that it's really over. It's really over. This is like the mop-up operation, as I see it. It's that far gone.
I'm not so sure that we're quite to the mop-up operation. I think this is building up to, as Ed said, a tipping point in the last segment before you guys came in. And I really believe it's right, because the model is the organizer-in-chief. The basic thing is to rub the wound raw and keep rubbing and keep rubbing and rubbing. That's the Alinsky way. And we're seeing this over and over again. We see the IRS Koskinen, what's his title, commissioner, saying, stalling on the lowest learner emails until it finally comes out. We see that, now if you don't give us our money, everybody's going to get bad customer service. It's thing after thing after thing where it just never stops. And it's replicated over the entire of this Leviathan government. We've always had the petty despots at the local level. The good old boys at the local level already, running it. And we see this in the Guilford School Board, which is one reason why I'm running to say, I've always been about the taxpayer first, that the spending should never rise above that of the average family in town, that it should be open and transparent. I mean, they've got plenty to work. They will have plenty to work with. I've got Guilford Grok and Granite Grok for them to pick and choose with. I expect to get everything thrown at me for this, and I'm going to laugh because we can do the same thing. But I guess even though I lament that this is happening, it's still up to folks like us who are interested in the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, due process and all of that have to make that stand, because we are the sheepdogs. We are the ones who are looking out for those that just want to live their lives, build up their careers, take care of their families, be happy with their friends, their pursuit of happiness. Face it, folks, the reason why we're all in this room, we are the sheepdogs.
Just very briefly, at what price are we the watchmen or the sheepdogs?
Everybody's going to have that price. I know that I have paid, you have paid, we all pay in one way or another. The question is what is that ultimate line that you will not cross, or is there no line at all? I mean, it really depends on how far things get pushed. And we may not know. We may say what we know what that line is. We may say that there's no line, but until that time comes, we don't know. I don't think any of us can.
And what are we trying to save?
I believe that the idea of a limited government, that the people are the sovereigns, that government should serve us and not the way around, that I believe that we are seeing a government that is trying to take the place of the old-time aristocracy and clerisy that we fought a Revolutionary War for back in the 1770s.
The problem is that so many people today, over the past 40 years, of this new education that people have been getting in America.
And that's the problem.
We now have a populace that's dominated by dummies. People that are just ignorant. I don't mean that offensively, although people I expect will take offense to it.
Ignorance might be a better word.
You're young enough to have been through that education
I did.
system, but you didn't succumb to it.
Because I resisted it. But the problem is most people are trained to just shut up and listen to the authority.
I think you're seeing a change in that, and you started to see that with the Tea Party.
Thank you, Mrs. Obama's school lunch program.
Oh, yes. That is causing...
You have no mic.
Yeah,
Oh, he can't not talk. Let's go. Give him a mic. Give him a headset. He's got something to say.
Mike can't Mike.
So that school lunch program is causing such burning resentment that you might actually inoculate some kids against the indoctrination system. But the point I wanted to make earlier, there was a comment captured, I think, during his San Francisco fundraiser on his way to, guess what, golf, in a place where you shouldn't be wasting water on golf courses, in that he said he's going to try to squeeze as much change into the next 2 years as he can. You talk about tipping points? Over to you.
All right. So.
But back to Guilford. So you've issued the 91As. You haven't received anything back as of yet. What is the next step in the process, if there is indeed a process?
Well, we have received some links back to their policy, which is really an admission that they knew what the law was. So we have.
And then we have the signs that magically appeared last Tuesday. So that's a de facto admission of noncompliance.
So and then we have an actual admission of noncompliance by Kent Hemingway, saying that at least one bus was out of compliance. So we have that too.
So is it okay to break the law once in a while, or do you have to break it wholesale in order to get prosecuted for it? I mean, do you need to break the law on all the buses in order for it to be a crime, or can you just break it in one? I mean, if we speed once in a while, that's when we get caught, right?
Well, it goes back again to Ian Underwood's. Either words have meaning or they have no meaning at all. And I think that's the basis where I could answer your question is one is sufficient, especially where we should be holding government to a much higher level of accountability. Kent Hemingway is an appointee, but, you know, there is a school board. Votes are coming up, but I think we do have the legal process. We are supposedly under the rule of law and having that process through, although they're going to do the same thing over and over again. They're going to drag this out for as long until you give up. If you give up,
this is a war of attrition, and they're hoping we're going to give up first.
It always is, and with these kinds of people, and I'm going to say Sue Allen, Kurt Weber, they dislike intensely being challenged.
That's right.
That is, they're ensconced in their own little world where they are king and queen. And how dare you challenge them?
I mean, if you want to even think about the whole concept of prosecutorial discretion, the prosecutor could say, listen, I'm going to opt not to pursue this. But that's when there's some wiggle room in the statute. When you have the facts 100% established and not in dispute whatsoever, and you have the law very clearly written in black and white letters, or black letters on white paper, there's nothing in dispute here. There's no discretion. There is no room for them to shimmy in and out and exercise any prosecutorial discretion. This is almost like, in the civil sense, a summary judgment. It's you go in and there's no facts in dispute and you're entitled to a judgment as a matter of law. The judge just says, here you go, buddy.
Well, good point. The question is, what is the remedy?
Well, for the 91A, I mean, if we have to go for an expedited hearing at the Superior Court, that's the next step. If I don't hear from them, then what other recourse is there?
No. My question will be, whenever you take somebody to court, there has to be a problem, which you've now stated, and the court is supposed to supply some kind of remedy. Now, you're not a resident of Guilford.
Correct. So the extent of my standing is the 91A.
Right. The other question will be, and I would not have standing, even though I'm a Guilford resident. I don't have kids that have been on that bus.
You weren't an injured party.
That is correct.
We're talking about we're talking about two different tracks. There's the criminal track, which we don't need standing for. This is a matter of telling the prosecutor, this is what's going on. Now do something about it. Go prosecute. That's what you're getting paid for. That's the first track. The second track is, like you identified, the civil track, which is obviously you need standing. You need to ostensibly show damages. What's interesting, which we didn't touch on, is that this statute very clearly provides for recovery with no actual damages. It provides for liquidated damages at $100 a day per incident.
Oh.
Okay, so in that case, and punitive damages. So the legislature took this very, very, very seriously. Liquidated damages are unusual, especially in a criminal statute where they cite it to the potential civil lawsuit. So in my case, for instance, my children have been on that bus for approximately a year and a half, being illegally listened to by a third party. Okay, without proper notice, without proper compliance with the statute. We figured it out. It's basically $50,000 in liquidated damages. $100 per incident, liquidated damages per day.
Wow,
okay?
That could add up quite a bit.
And then there's punitive damages, which when you're dealing with a $7 billion national New World Order corporation and an insurance company who obviously is going to be involved with this,
okay, now
punitive damages would be interesting.
Okay, side issue. Push your windscreen down again. That I got to bring that mic home. No, the covering.
The little foamy thing on the front there.
Yeah.
There you go.
But the question is, though, you can go after the commercial entity, and that is one thing. But if you go after civil damages, the $100 a day, the school board's going to be associated with that. What is your answer to say, okay, if we have to pay this as the school board, it's going to result in higher taxes for everybody to pay this in one way, or would it be possible to go after these individuals that made the decisions, the school board, and sue them personally and hold them personally accountable so it doesn't come out of the taxpayers' pockets, but will it come out of their personal pockets? Is that something that's possible?
It makes no difference. It's probably...
You still have no mic, Mike.
I need more money to get more of these headsets.
Yeah, it'll make no difference because if the school board is smart, they'll have some kind of director's insurance protecting them from being individually sued.
I'm sure they have insurance.
Pardon?
They have insurance. I'm quite
sure. So the school board, it'll come out of the town's pocket, but in the form of increased insurance premiums. Not to say that it shouldn't happen. The question is, okay, on the one hand, it's your town and you're hurting yourself. On the other hand, if you don't make an example of somebody, they'll keep on doing it everywhere. And the final point is it's per person day. So, however many schools are in the school district times the number of days this has been going on, unannounced is the amount they're liable for, which is going to be huge. And if we find the same corporation is doing it in other towns, the amount you can go after the company for is potentially, off the charts.
Well, my son goes to Stratham Memorial School in Stratham, which is SAU 16. I can't keep all these subdivisions organized in my head. Anyway, so I went to pick him up from school the other day, and I just decided I'd peek on one of the buses. And I asked the bus driver, is it customary practice for SAU 16 or whatever?
This was a random bus.
This was completely random, because my son doesn't ride the bus on Wednesdays because I pick him up. So I walk up and they go, oh, yeah, we audio and video record. Okay, so I look up, no sign. He was in a rush to move his bus forward, so I decided to go to the next bus and repeat the operation. So I went in with my camera on, and I video and audio recorded. I gave the woman notice, you're being video and audio recorded. And I'm wondering, is it customary practice for you people to video and audio record the students? Yes, it is. Is it practice all throughout the SAU? Yes, it is. It's been going on for a while? Yes, it is. I pan up to the front of the bus. There's no notice. I look to the side of the bus. Who's running the bus? Our friends in Great Britain.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. We're seeing this in a variety of different locations where the local school boards, we've seen Dover, Maltonborough, Guilford, what's the rest? I've just gone blank. But there's probably 5 or 6. Interlakes, Hampton, where all of these school boards are taking this autocratic standpoint or outlook upon those that have elected them. They're supposed to be serving. Government is supposed to do the things that we pay them to do. They are our employees, but they're trying to reverse the whole relationship here. And
right, the servants have become the masters, and the lawmakers have become the lawbreakers.
Marmer had asked while we were talking how many districts do this, and I think we're going to find out.
I think it's going to be massive.
And we're going to probably find out that they are scurrying right now to retrofit buses all over the state of New Hampshire, and that needs to be uncovered.
But that just stops the bleeding. That doesn't account for the blood that's been lost. I mean, there's been a lot of blood loss. There's been a lot of crimes committed. The crimes have been continuing up until the time that they do retrofit these buses with the signage and the notice and what have you. But if there is no penalty, there is no reason for the law, period.
Well, there is no rule of law.
Susan.
Could you ostensibly subpoena individual bus drivers to say when that sign went up?
100%. Once we file a lawsuit. And, of course, the prosecutor could do that, of course, yeah.
And most likely those school bus drivers would be paying their own legal fees.
I would tend to think not. I mean, I don't know.
the bus company would jump in for them, and that would
maybe.
Are they employed by the bus company or are they employed by the district?
The drivers are employed by the bus company.
Okay, well that's very interesting because there's a lot of bus drivers out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they're 65 or 66,000 employees of First Student. So
in New Hampshire,
all over the world.
No, all over the world.
Are they part of Bluebird? Is that the same thing?
That's
Bluebird
the
is the manufacturer
of the bus.
They actually, the same company owns Greyhound. They're humongous.
And Bolt Bus.
Bolt Bus, yeah.
That's what brought down the Suharto family in Indonesia, just so you know.
Really?
The daughter owned the bus company, and it was uncollateralized, and they international bankers came in and said, how's that working for you?
All right, so everybody should be doing 91As in their towns for purchase orders for signs to be put on buses.
And the thing of it is they may be able to escape that particular line of questioning because they, presumably, the superintendent makes a phone call over to the bus manager and says, hey, you guys are not in compliance and we're taking a lot of heat for this. So then the bus company, which is not subject to 91A, will...
No, but the conversation from
the conversation
the
back and forth
superintendent
is correct. And that's what we've asked for.
Except
those
in Timberlane.
We've asked for those
that's
records as
another
well.
One. Yeah.
We've asked for all those conversations. So
cool. All right, well, it's a big deal. I mean, people are like, oh, they don't realize. I mean, we have this law. It's very strict. It's very detailed. I mean, the freaking district has a policy in its own manual that it's violating.
But this Safety Sally society that we live in right now is all about protecting the children. And what would you do if your son got beaten up on a bus and it wasn't on video? You same people would probably be complaining that there were no cameras.
My kids went to public school on the buses, and the crap that goes on.
Well, the thing is, neither of us, and I haven't heard anybody like who is sympathetic, let's say, to my position or Josh's position, argue that video cameras and audio recording should not be on the school buses. I've never said that. I haven't even really thought about it. That's not the point. The point is very focused and very simple. These people are breaking the law. They haven't given notice. And my son and my daughter are sitting on that bus for a year and a half, having conversations with each other, having conversations with friends about who knows what. Well, like I said, who knows what is the bus company and the school. I don't know what they said, but they know what my children said. And they were recorded illegally. That's what's going on. This isn't about safety. That's a different discussion. We might all say, after we get all the facts, that cameras should be on school buses and there should be audio recording. That's fine. The legislature allowed for that. They just said, here, everybody else is banned. We're going to carve out an exception for you, but there's a couple little rules you have to follow. Please follow the rules. And they didn't follow the rules. It's that simple.
And it really shows which is more important in most people's minds. And I think you're right, Billy. Most people would say, stop the fighting. Well, unfortunately, the rights, as we've talked about a number of times, seems to be a much more nebulous idea for today's society. Yet we all know in this room that those rights, the due process, the rule of law, without that we wouldn't be a republic. Without the respect for the right to private property, we wouldn't be a republic. Due process, we really wouldn't be a republic. Those three things are very much important. But because of our educational system, they're
people have lost interest in that.
Well, or they don't understand the importance of them, that those undergird all the rest of this
is clearly
stuff.
Going to be characterized as it's going to be a false choice between school safety and recording, and that's not the choice.
Well, and you've made it quite clear.
We could have both.
You made it quite clear what the issue is. They didn't follow the law, and that's where we're going. This is GrokTALK. We'll be back. We will be back after I stumble. Next week, more guests, more news, more opinion, more GrokTALK.
Yeah, baby!
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results.
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
there are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change.
Jean Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpack.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
All of the music on this program comes to us through Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers, not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, or anyone else for that matter.